It looked like the chain reaction from an atomic device might never stop.
Are we saying there's a chance that when we push that button, we destroy the world?
Chances are near zero.
Near zero.
Christopher Nolan is one of the biggest science fiction directors of our time. A couple months ago, we covered Interstellar, the 2014 movie he did with the physicist Kip Thorne. The science in Interstellar was completely theoretically plausible. Christopher Nolan's curiosity and dedication to scientific accuracy is basically lore at this point.
We're not meant to save the world. We're meant to leave it.
Rangers.
The last components of our one versatile ship in orbit.
In 2021, Nolan read the biography American Prometheus by Martin Sherwin and Kai Bird. American Prometheus is a 2005 biography which is written over the course of 25 years on the life of J. Robert Oppenheimer, the father of the atomic bomb. Oppenheimer was a German Jewish-American theoretical physicist who led the Manhattan Project's Los Alamos Laboratory during World War II. A supremely complicated figure who was interested in Sanskrit and Hinduism, quoting the Bhagavad Gita.
I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." I suppose we all thought that.
Oppenheimer was a student of the Ethical Culture School, an avowed leftist, and a supporter of the Spanish Republic, a sometimes communist, and a poet.
Well, I don't want to speak for others because we're all different. I think when you play a meaningful part in bringing about the death of over 100,000 people and the injury of a comparable number, you naturally don't think of that as with ease. I believe we had a great cause to do this, but I do not think that our consciences should be entirely easy at stepping out of the part of studying nature, learning the truth about it, to change the course of human history. Long ago, I said once that in a crude sense, which no vulgarity and no humor could quite erase, the physicists had known sin. And I didn't mean by that the deaths that were caused as the result of our work. I meant that we had known the sin of pride.
He also led the Trinity test and ended up becoming responsible for the atomic bomb's development before it was dropped on Japan in World War II. He became an establishment Democratic figure during the Truman administration, but also came to regret, though not apologize for, his role in the development of the atomic bomb. This regret earned the ire of figures like Lewis Strauss and Edward Teller, who wished for the development of the superbomb, the hydrogen-based next step to the atomic bomb.
Dr. Teller, the weather has been quite violent around the world this year. Is there any possibility this might be due to nuclear test explosions?
You know, there have been few things that have not been dragged in to explain the weather. And furthermore, there have been few disagreeable occurrences that have not been blamed on nuclear tests. So nobody should be surprised that if the weather is violent, nuclear tests should be considered as there is. In actual tests, nuclear explosions are far too small to change the weather. Much greater energies are involved in thunderstorms and in cyclones and in cold fronts than nuclear explosions could possibly serve.
This led to Oppenheimer being the most high-profile member of government to be brought down during the McCarthy era. Oppenheimer is a pretty on-point adaptation of American Prometheus.
What were you guys doing in Los Alamos? And how many people were in these open discussions?
Cillian Murphy plays J. Robert Oppenheimer, Robert Downey Jr. Lewis Strauss, and Benny Safdie plays Edward Teller. Matt Damon plays Leslie Groves, the Army Corps of Engineers officer who oversaw the Manhattan Project. Nolan took the book's part-by-part telling of Oppenheimer's life and mixes up the parts on purpose so that three different stories are being told simultaneously. The story of Oppenheimer's rise, fall, and the fall of Lewis Strauss. Nolan clearly wishes for this to be a cautionary tale, and it's a clear and well-worn one. There is so much to talk about with this movie, and I'd rather we do it as a panel than take up any more of this time.
It's happening, isn't it?
Anyway, before I introduce the panel, please like this video and subscribe to the Movie Night Extravaganza YouTube channel. Hit that bell to get notified whenever we're streaming. Also, we are now monetized, so if you have any pressing questions during this live stream, send us a super chat, which helps me keep the show running, and which I am obligated by international law, human rights law, to answer. We also have a Patreon, patreon.com/Movie Night Extra. All of our after parties are on there forever. Okay, let me introduce the panel. Conan Neutron, host of Protonic Reversal, co-host of Movie Night Extravaganza, and frontman for Conan Neutron and the Secret Friends, neutronfriends.bandcamp.com. Conan Neutron and the Secret Friends has a new split LP with Lung, Adult Prom, available now on Bandcamp. J. Andrew World, illustrator, book cover artist, artist for Give Them an Argument, co-host for Movie Night Extravaganza, and Bad Takes. Kristina Oakes, This Barbie is streaming on Twitch, twitch.tv/Cosmopolitics, Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky at Cosmopolitics. Send her some subs on Twitch. Zach Marsh, he's a filmmaker, musician, contributing editor at FilmSpeak. His current project is A Talk in the Park, and he's on Letterboxd. Now I am become Forrest, destroyer of streams. Bombs away, baby.
There it is. Of course, the part of it, J. Andrew World will be played by the Wolfman with a guitar for tonight's stream.
I'm sure he'll pop up. I'm sure he'll pop up at some point.
Zach Marsh, welcome back. It's been a hot minute. It's the last time it was a Triangle of Sadness, and you've been a busy boy. You're also busy being on mute, by the way, if you're not aware.
And now it's Atom Bomb of Sadness.
I was over polite with the I was muting myself during the intro, and I forgot.
It's the Canadian in you, yeah, for sure. We appreciate that about you. Welcome back. Yeah, it's been a hell of a time. You've been really busy with your short film, and we were kind of talking about that before the show.
Thanks for having me back. Yeah, no, it's Talk in the Park has been it's been a resounding success as far as I'm concerned. When I made this film a year ago, I had I submitted to Sundance, I submitted to a bunch of festivals. I had no expectation it was going to get to any of them, and it's been in 11 so far. It's had an in-person screening in Toronto.
Very
I
nice.
believe it played in Bali, and I'm going to New Zealand at the end of the month to support it there.
Wow.
Yeah,
And also,
not bad.
the festival in New Zealand contacted me, and one of the organizers has connections to some theaters in Berlin, Germany. And apparently, in October or November, it's going to play. It's going to have its European premiere as just adjacent to the New Zealand festival. So, it's lit a fire in my ass. I've actually started writing a feature film now.
I saw you tease that out with an Instagram post, if I remember correctly.
Yes, I've been in contact with an actor I know is a friend of mine. I believe she's going to be the co-lead in it, and I believe it is a very feasible, easy film. I mean, it's not easy to make any film, but I believe it's a film that just budget-wise, in terms of just the logistics of making it, it's very feasible that I can make it in the next. I believe that I can have the film shot by this time next year.
Exciting stuff. Of course, that's not the reason why you're on this show. I mean, we love all that stuff, but one of the reasons why is how many times have you seen this film so far?
Oppenheimer, I've seen 4 times.
Same.
Pretty good.
Regrettably, I could not make it this week to go for number 5. But I do intend to, because it's still playing at Scotiabank Theater here. I'm hoping this week or next I'm going to get number 5 in.
You should have watched the one with the Indian casino subtitles.
That's the one.
I will never, ever, ever, ever watch this movie in a torrent form.
But fun fact, it was Robert Pattinson who gave Christopher Nolan American Prometheus to read.
Oh, wow.
Really?
For Colin. Yeah, because he was in his last film.
He was in Tenet, yeah.
Yeah.
And he's like the one person who's not
really
in
good
Oppenheimer. He's like the one actor on Earth.
Yeah. Yep.
He's like, I'm gonna secure myself some work, and then does not get cast in the.
I don't want to narc anybody out, but it would look like this if that was a thing that, of course, anybody in this show did.
We didn't do that.
I need you to get that off the screen. I'm gonna fall. Otherwise, I'm gonna throw up on camera.
Somewhere like Christopher Nolan just got a pain in his side. He's like, oh, where did that come from?
I think. Sorry, who took that screenshot?
Conan?
I think
nobody on this stream. I tell you that.
I think Christopher Nolan might be beating them to death with a chair right now.
Yeah, exactly.
He's like, there's a power outage, and it's Christopher Nolan.
Oh yeah, you see, just pulling the plug like Wile E. Coyote. Yeah.
Yo, so while making the intro, I realized that it was 1965 when Oppenheimer said the now I am become death destroyer of worlds thing.
But in the movie.
Which is 20 years after he dropped, the Trinity test, which makes it so that he had 20 years to think of like something really cool to say. He's like, oh yeah. Like when it happened, you know what I mean? Like I was, that's what I was thinking. And so in American Prometheus, which I've read, and I just, I read like the entire Los Alamos part like the last couple days again, so I could be briefed up on it. Frank Oppenheimer, like his brother, said that the actual quote that everybody said when the bomb went off was just, "It worked."
Oh, it's just like when this show goes on air at the right time. Oh, it works.
But it's really funny that like permanently that's been like scarred into his because it's like it's such a memorable thing to like compare the bomb to Vishnu and the Bhagavad Gita, and it's just like he probably didn't like think that like he had a really long time to just like think about like
cool
to come up with something cool. Well, but it makes sense, right? Because if you think about like he had the time to reflect on what it meant to the world at large, how the world had changed, et cetera, et cetera. It's a great line, but it's funny that it's like
when it's said in the movie.
When it's in the movie, it's not.
It's the equivalent of I don't know if you have Seinfeld fans in the house, but when George Costanza tries to use his jerk store line on the guy and it backfires, and he's in like the car driving home from the conference. And then
I remember when I saw the movie for the first time, I literally screamed, "What?" And everyone was like, "What?" I'm like, nothing. It's cool. No, nothing.
She's also just holds the book up. She's like, "Read this. What does this say?" And it's just that page. Oh yeah, you read Sanskrit. Read the Sanskrit right now.
Prove it. Show me.
He's like, well, in this paragraph, she's like, no, read the fucking words, dude. Yeah. I'm not asking for a summary of the Bhagavad Gita, bro. I want you to prove that you're not lying to me right now. Just like that time you said that when they dropped the atom bomb, and you probably just said it worked. Like,
Did you guys know, like, recently information came out that they shot the movie within like 2 months because they were quickly trying to build up the Los Alamos scene, set. And Christopher Nolan got that done on time, and I'm like, damn, that's some effective work. And Cillian Murphy had like 6 months to prepare, and he doesn't go into detail about how he ended up having a 24-inch waist, whatever. But I'm assuming it's the Judy Garland diet, cigarettes, chicken broth, liquids. I don't know. I'm
gonna have to hit him up because
yeah, exactly.
But also gaining back that weight,
these 3 weird tricks. Yeah.
Well, I also think it's ironic that the chain smoking is like a real Oppenheimer thing, right? Like he was constantly fucking he smoked like 5 packs a day or something, which means that like they dropped the fucking bomb, they did the Trinity test, he was near enough,
and that didn't kill him.
Yeah, that didn't give him cancer, but with like 20 years later, he got cancer from smoking.
Yeah.
So like it's he poisoned himself at Trinity, just not the way you'd expect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, everybody.
I did like the idea that Christopher Nolan saw the book and he looked at the cover and he was like, I want to make this into a movie. I know who could do this, because Cillian Murphy has been in the industry for over 25 years now. Yeah. And I feel like with Peaky Blinders and now Oppenheimer, he's finally getting his due, which he's probably like.
I remember you invoking Peaky Blinders. I remember people being like, oh, who's this guy? It's like, who's that guy? Like, he's like one of the great character actors of this generation, man. Like, we're 28 Days Later. Hello. I mean,
Red Eye.
Yeah.
And
like,
Christopher Nolan cameo.
But he's that guy. As much as he's an attractive dude, he's a that guy actor.
He's also a very prolific Nolan actor, too, though.
Yeah.
Right. He's in the Scarecrow and the Batman movies.
All 3.
Yep.
Yeah. So he's someone that he did like work with a bunch, and then put.
But for the larger audience, like your mainstream audience, they'd be like, "Who's that guy?"
Except that's the guy that hung Brain in 28 Later.
He certainly did. That was doing that episode and that rewatch. I was like, oh, I don't remember that.
I like when they have the TV, like they have their made for TV version. They try to just like center it out, and it's like already pixelated because that movie is shot.
Because because he shot it on like early digital, and it's like was never meant to be upscaled or anything along those lines. Because he was trying to Boyle was like not having a lot of fun shooting movies and wanted to do something quick and dirty and like that was very much of the moment, which is hilarious because now I feel like the fast zombie thing has become like internalized to the point that certain stylistic things that are in that movie are emulated just because they're good in that movie rather than being like stylistic things.
And what's fascinating about, with Oppenheimer is that, of course, there's so many memes, but there's that, if y'all ever saw Once Upon a Time and there's that scene where Leonardo DiCaprio recognizes himself, in like a scene where he's Brad Pitt's stunt double. It was like every time I saw someone I recognized for Oppenheimer, oh, there I am. Oh, there I am. And I'm like, because this movie has a ton of cameos, and I was like, whoa.
I also think it's really funny that this is a meme juggernaut because the serious the thing
it's a serious film, right? It's like I mean, Nolan's known for making serious films, but I love that it's a meme juggernaut, and also, I mean, I guess we should just bring it up. The whole like Barbie being inexorably like tied to it now is just delicious.
Well,
I love it.
It's just
I love both movies.
We're at such a terrifying point. I feel like in some ways. Because of the Ukraine war right now, and for the first time we have another power with just as many nukes as probably more nukes than we do, like that we're kind of in direct proxy conflict with at least, and like so this feels like a time that we should be looking at our arsenal and saying like, hey, like maybe we should learn the lessons from from like 70, 80 whatever years ago when this was all being developed. And it's like instead, well, I don't think that like society at large is always ready to grapple with that. So we're just on Twitter like, hey, let's post memes of fucking Einstein going, I remember you was conflicted, misusing your influence and shit like that, where it's just like the most
my favorite like TikToks is like when they have like when someone's posting like the ending scene of Oppenheimer, but they're playing What Was I Made For from the Barbie movie. I'm like, honestly, that actually kind of makes sense too,
Yeah, it works. It flies. What do you, Zach? How do you feel about the memification of Oppenheimer and the whole Barbenheimer phenomenon?
I mean, the memification I think is great because I think it just I always enjoy when a movie gets memed in a way that is like adverse to what the movie is. you know,
Right.
which I think
Yeah.
like this is the most serious movie you could see. The memes are almost all fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
Barbenheimer I just think was a great thing for like movie theaters. I actually think that because I go to the movies, I go to the theater like 100 times a year, and
Yeah.
I
Lucky.
genuinely feel that I have witnessed the lingering positive effect of Barbenheimer
Yeah.
in the fact that, like, you know, how packed Talk to Me was. I just saw
Sure.
Bottoms, which I wasn't
Yeah.
a huge fan of, but like it was every seat was full for Bottoms. You know, things like that. Like I feel like, you know, it's rejuvenated the movie going experience.
Yeah.
I think you're onto something because I think it's like people have remembered now. Oh yeah, it can be fun to just go to the movies, which I know sounds reductive. Obviously, we know that we're on a movie podcast, but like I'm talking about your
We are?
average film goer. Yeah, are we? These cameras aren't on, right? Okay. But like I think that's amazing, and it's amazing that it didn't take just one of these things, but the weird combination that will never be replicated, no matter how hard they try.
Paw
Of these
Patrol
two things,
And they will try.
Oh, they will try. Yes,
Oh, no. And-
absolutely.
Another thing too with the strike happening, because you know studios are refusing to pay their actors and writers and such.
Call it what it is.
Dune 2 would have been Oppenheimer's biggest competition at the Oscars, which is actually good news that Dune actually got delayed until
pushed.
2024. But here's the thing. I know how we could create a Barbenheimer event. Timothy Chalamet has a
On,
bunch
on
of
this
movies.
show, we're gonna do it on this show. Great.
I have an idea. Listen.
Okay.
So Timothy Chalamet has like 3 movies coming out in like 2024.
This kid's in everything. This kid.
Why not release them all in May and call it Chalamet?
Oh, that's pretty good.
Give me for marketing. Anyway,
He is,
Kristina is available for employment opportunities.
he is young Wonka, which is the movie that I feel like didn't need to get made.
Is that what they're calling it, Young Wonka? I think
something like that.
something like that.
Is this spelled
They're calling it
J-U-N-G?
Wonka.
Yeah, it might just be Wonka.
Young Wonka would actually make me like it more if they call it
Young Wonka,
because it makes it sound like a rapper.
or like Young Sheldon. They're like whatever, like that. Fucking
But the
stupid show.
Oscar buzz for, you know, Oppenheimer puts it in a positive position considering Dune 2 was going to be delayed because that would have been his biggest competition. Because I don't really know if they're even going to do the Oscars. I mean, we don't, you know, writers. I mean, we don't.
Right. It probably depends on how it all shakes out, right?
Yeah, because there's like 10 nominations Oppenheimer could be up for. And I'm like, yeah, I can see that.
Dune 2, Dune your dad.
I think you know, Oppenheimer's winning Best Picture. I think it's pretty
It's
locked at this point.
It's pretty hard to see. I haven't seen Past Lives yet. I think it's going to be too niche.
I think Past Lives, one, it came out too early, and like Past Lives is incredible, but it came out too early in the year, and it's just, I feel like it's the kind of movie that an Oscar voter would just kind of like have.
It's the come on of this year. It's going to be a fantastic film. People that are really into like that type of cinema are going to love it and talk about it for years and years, but it's not going to be in Best Picture.
Yeah, I have zero. I remember. I think it was when I saw Beau is Afraid. The first trailer was Past Lives, and this definitely isn't for me. Like, this is not something that is aimed at a movie that I want to go see. It, you know.
Yeah. I think the Bradley Cooper, where he's the
Maestro,
the conductor, Maestro. Yeah,
Leonard Bernstein.
Leonard Bernstein.
I hope he doesn't win Best Actor because like he has to wear prosthetics. It's like it's such a like a cheap out, like it's ridiculous.
I think he's.
like
I think Killian's gonna take that.
I think he's
not even gonna show up.
I like that the backlash to the Bernstein prosthetics was just called like Jew face, which makes it sound way more like that was trendy for a while. It makes it sound way more offensive than like they're like, you know, his nose is bigger.
Oh, yeah, because remember Nicole Kidman had to wear a fake nose.
Like, they're like he's doing Jew face, and it's like maybe don't call it that. Maybe
sounds pretty offensive. Yeah.
It's.
I'm glad there's. By the way, can I just say, Benny Safdie? Like, first of all, I didn't recognize that it was him at first because I just don't recognize what those dudes look like, even though I probably should. But he did a really great job knowing what that actual dude looks like. He did a great job.
Yeah.
I was more consumed with the guy from The Boys who plays Richard Feynman, who I've established as one of my favorite physicists and one of my favorite historical figures of all time. And I was like, oh, that's the guy from The Boys. Awesome. That's great.
Again, I was like,
he's Feynman. Yeah, definitely Leo meme, big time for all that. But I have for the seemingly hundreds of people in this movie, like they're all pretty well cast.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I don't think there's like a weak performance, like even in this most tiniest little part in the
Florence
whole
Pugh.
film.
And Christopher Nolan was like, I wish I didn't give you a smaller role. I'm like, but it made an impact, whether you like it or not. But I think Emily Blunt did a really good job playing, his wife, because also her and Killian starred in A Quiet Place Part 2. So they have, the chemistry is already there. And they were more somewhat, they had a lot of issues in the marriage because he was a womanizer, clearly.
I mean, I don't think that's why they had a lot of issues in the marriage, but yeah. I mean, that's
she was also an alcoholic, but
yeah, well, kind of. I mean, definitely after she definitely was an alcoholic after Los Alamos. I don't know if she was necessarily an alcoholic during Los Alamos. It's almost like a cartoonish representation of alcoholism, though, because every time she's in the scene, she's like sneaking for the flask and she's like making a sip in the like. I don't know. I also didn't recognize that it was fucking Casey Affleck playing.
The really creepy.
I was like,
Ash.
I was like, God damn it!
The first time I saw the movie, my theater had an audible like, "Oh my god!" when Casey Affleck showed up. I don't know why. I mean, it was cool, but it was just like that was like a moment in the movie.
My brain somehow didn't like. It feels like he embodied somebody completely different than his like the representation of him in cinema. Like my brain didn't register that was Casey Affleck. He's just so fucking creepy in that role. And
he's really great in that role. I don't know anything about like what the guy's up to personally or anything along those lines, but he was fantastic in that role.
So the actual
a fantastic creep.
The actual Boris Pash, like the guy that was the security.
He could have been like a Ben Gazzara if it was in the 70s or something, right?
Oh my god!
So the actual Boris Pash, right? He was one of the main witnesses during the church committee because he was like one of the people that was linked to the CIA's assassination program. So with like Florence Pugh's character in this, there's a whole like level of conspiracy with her family too, that he actually murdered her, which is when you see her head going into the thing
Gene
really
Tatlock
fast.
did not. Never mind.
Yeah, well, so and there's enough like there's evidence kind of that like the way that she
died, doesn't like come out right and say it, but I mean like if you like
it hits. I mean,
if you watch movies or like are aware of any kind of storytelling narrative structure of any kind, it opens up enough questions, and I think it's reasonable to assume that.
Especially when you're communist and it's the Red Scare. And another thing too is like
and Casey Affleck is so freaking creepy.
Yeah, and a lot because the main concept.
Well, the real guy was too. The real guy was ridiculously fucking creepy. He was going around telling both Leslie Groves, like the the Matt Damon character in this, and the other security people that he wanted to bring certain people at Los Alamos onto a boat, drown them on the boat, and then throw their body into the water so nobody would ever find. Like he made threats towards like 4 or 5 different people at Los Alamos, including like the one guy Lemonowitz or whatever that was like the communist that they like including him. So like for him, like and drowning was like the thing that he was saying that he was going to do to them. He was like I'm going to bring them on the boat and interrogate them in the Russian manner, which means like drown them and like throw their body at sea. So,
but you hate communism.
So it's like for Gene Tatlock to have drowned in the tub with a full amount of food in her stomach. Like she ate a meal supposedly, and there was like they found that like there was a Mickey, like like the date rape drug pretty much in her system and everything. So there's like that kind of evidence, and it's like there was a guy that was like linked to the CIA's assassination program to the point where E. Howard Hunt came out at the church committee hearings and said, that's the assassination guy. Like, that's the guy we bring in to assassinate people. And he's like, I'm gonna drown some people, and then somebody drowns. Like, of course, there's questions raised. It's like, did the assassination guy do it? Like
what fascinated me about this movie too is that it's all about him getting like his security clearance and whatnot, and of course he doesn't get it, but like a lot of the information about Oppenheimer was already well known, but of course during the Red Scare that shit gets rehashed and then it's now bad. Like that's one thing that drove me crazy about like these witch hunts from the right towards like left-leaning figures.
Yeah.
Well, J. Edgar Hoover throughout World War II was trying to discredit Oppenheimer the entire time, because and they do a good job of this in the actual movie, showing that like literally there was a guy going around at Berkeley like taking license plates at whatever
Oh yeah, that was very
there was like a leftist or like a communist meeting that was happening. There would be somebody going around taking license plates and then running the license plates. So that's how they opened up his file in the first place. And J. Edgar Hoover throughout World War II was trying to discredit Oppenheimer and not let him get a security clearance. Like that was a big part of the story there.
Which as far as like a narrative hook for like basically the back third of the movie is like you wouldn't think it would be that thrilling.
Yeah.
It's like, yo, this is like C-SPAN.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like
it really is.
But obviously it's deeply entertaining. And by the way, how great is it to see Robert Downey Jr. in a role where he actually gets to act too? Which
Yes.
And when I saw it with Lindsay, like she was like even a
recognize
couple
him.
scenes, she was like, "Wait, is that Robert Downey Jr.?" Like she didn't recognize him, and why would she? Because like he like just disappears into that role, right? Like literally becomes that guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
it's he actually did really well. But what's so weird is that like I know he's probably gonna get Oscar buzz for Best Supporting Actor, but I just feel like Matt Damon should also get some credit too.
Damon is really good in this, and that is not a sentence I say super often.
Yes. Even Rami Malek killed in his only 2 minutes in the film.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the Leslie Groves character. Like he does a good job. I mean, Matt Damon's pretty likable, like as an actor, and he does a good job. I think, kind of being an asshole. The real guy was a disruptive force within Los Alamos. Like they had because and I wanted to talk about this during the movie too, because we talked about this a really long time ago with like Day of the Dead and like the clash between military and science. And like,
that comes up often.
The real life representation of that, right? Like military and science don't necessarily jive very well, but in emergency situations they always have to work together. And it's interesting that like the most disruptive possible force when you're trying to do something that no one's ever done before in this short amount of time is to have like a bumbling ass fucking like military guy like running around barking orders and telling everybody to keep things secret and like, you know what I mean? Like there's just so much like,
which is really how those special projects operate too, though.
Yeah.
Like it's sort of like they live and die based on if like the person that they have deemed to be, like more or less like a company man, take of that what you will, that will lay down the law, right? And it becomes their responsibility if it goes sideways. And that is a real thing that happens. And but it is funny because you normally do see it in like, your zombie apocalypse movies.
Yeah. Which I mean, this is a different kind of, I think, like proto-apocalypse situation, like a real life version of that. So we talk a lot about CGI and practical effects, and I found.
By the way, can I just say, saw The Flash? The most odious thing about it for me is that video game special effects is what that looked like.
Oh God!
I was watching the movie right now on Max, and I'm like, why?
How is Ezra Miller starring in this the second most odious thing?
I liked The Flash a lot more than I thought I would, but it looked like shit.
No, it looks horrible.
Like shit.
It's some PlayStation 2 video game cutscene stuff. Like what?
PlayStation 2 is generous. I would go PS1. PS1, Dreamcast.
It's so like how did they look at them and be like, "Yep, looks good." What did James Gunn say? Best superhero movie ever made?
Yeah.
My question is, because I'm not gonna watch this movie. Where does it rate on the Jumanji scale? The special effects, like
the Jumanji monkeys, man, probably.
I think the Jumanji monkeys look better.
The Jumanji monkeys might look better. I will say this, and you know how I feel about mid and bad movies. I think it is worth watching for Michael Keaton, who is great in it.
Yeah.
But
I would just
don't put any effort or time into it.
I would just go watch any other movie with Michael Keaton in it.
But it sucks because he's especially good reprising his Batman character as like a different kind of guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not garbage. If the movie was just garbage, it'd be easier to dismiss. But holy crap, some of the worst CGI I have ever seen. And you know how much I like to rant about that because I just despise all of it. And how much, and basically that goes into us talking about practical effects and how we talk about that a lot in this show. And that's, I think, what this is about, right?
Director with a long-held passion for practical effects, it was actually one of the rare occasions from his previous films where he embraced CGI methods that made it clear to him that Oppenheimer's cinematic centerpiece would have to be created without the use of computer graphics.
At the end of Dark Knight Rises is a nuclear explosion, the point of which is very, very different from the explosion we knew we had to portray the real-life Trinity test. And so we used computer graphics to do the explosion in Dark Knight Rises, but it was, strange to say, in that sequence, it was the release of tension. It was actually put further away and made to feel safe. But when I came to Oppenheimer, And I thought, okay, how do we portray the Trinity test? That first atomic device being detonated. That's not going to work. Computer graphics, they're extremely versatile, and the detail that can be achieved and the variety of imagery that can be achieved is obviously unparalleled. But they tend to feel a little anodyne, a little safe. It's very difficult to have computer graphics convey threat, which is why they have to be used very carefully in horror movies, for example. It's difficult to make CG threatening. I first showed the script to Andrew Jackson, my visual effects supervisor, and said, I don't think that tool's going to work for us. So let's see if we can produce all of these effects using analog methods. From the very first imaginings that Oppenheimer has of the quantum world, of atoms, how they would be interacting, the strong force between them, waves, particles, the duality of that.
The scene set prior to the detonation in the vast New Mexico desert is one filled with tension. Each member of the cast is on top of their game, displaying a range of excitement, fear and dread. It's a breadth of emotion that needed to be carefully balanced by Nolan and reflected in the blast itself. So many of his previous stunts and set pieces were designed in order to thrill and entertain the audience, turning their world upside down like a semi-truck flipping in downtown Gotham. Oppenheimer called for a different type of effect, one more akin to a moment of tragedy from something like There Will Be Blood than the heroic action of Top Gun Maverick. It's meant to be a horrifying moment that leaves theaters solemnly quiet as opposed to whooping with glee.
It's useful that you use the word horrific in the same breath as entertainment, which seems contradictory. And of course, it's a little uncomfortable talking about the word entertainment in regard to something so serious. And when we speak of entertainment in movies, we're not necessarily talking about fun and laughter and happy things. We're talking about engagement. We're talking about being riveted by a very tense and dramatic story and possibly appalled, possibly horrified. That's engagement, and that is the stuff of entertainment. And so for me, everything about Oppenheimer's story was about engagement. Everything is about being in his head and using the IMAX format, which we've used for action in the past. We knew it would give us the vast desert, the weather coming in, storms, the Trinity test itself, with its beauty and horror in sort of equal measure. That contradictory impulse, and it's there in the story structure as well, to build the Trinity test and then what comes after. This is a film about consequences, and we want it to be unsettling.
Absolutely. I mean, we talked about, well, first of all, one of my favorite memes is like, Nolan used a lot of practical effects. It's like, wait, atomic bomb? Like, it had like the...
Yeah. Oh my God, even the U.S. government's got to figure out what the hell going on.
That cracked me up. But but again, yeah, I feel like it comes up in the show so often just because so many non-practical effects are just weightless garbage, right? And like, I never felt that. Saw this twice, both times 70 millimeter. One was at the Universal City Walk, which was like apparently where Nolan premiered it, which, no big deal. But like,
that's a big
deal. It's a pretty big deal. Like, it looks astounding, right? It looks astounding not just on a regular screen, but like on like the gigantic 70 millimeter IMAX screen.
Yeah, we films in that.
It's pretty remarkable. Zach, you have any thoughts on the practical effects of Oppenheimer? You're
muted
too, by the way. But yeah, I don't think I can unmute you. Can I?
No, I muted myself again. It's
the Canadian in you. You're just too polite.
No, the practical effects are fucking phenomenal. Like even just the little visual interludes. Like I get that those things are technically easy to achieve. Like he's like filming like spectrometers or something like just instruments, but like all that stuff is gorgeous. The stuff inside his head, and then like the atomic test, which I haven't looked into it. My guess is they set off like a medium-sized explosion, then kind of composited it to look like
little boy, big
like
boy,
like a nuke.
Yeah,
but like
I have a clip where he's talking about it.
Cool.
After
Awesome.
this, but I wanted to play the actual Trinity test footage.
What it actually looks like. Good.
Okay. Oh my God, we're good. We need sunscreen and glasses for this one.
Because it's,
and I love. Can I say one nice moment about that scene is when Feynman just behind the windshield of the car, like that'll stop it.
Yeah,
and because that's a thing. No, that's a thing he actually talks about in his book on his time working on the Manhattan Project. So that was like I swear, it's like Nolan put that in for me specifically. I swear, because like I was like, oh my god, it was up.
Well, it's in. They reference it in American Prometheus too.
I'm sure, but like he does like a chapter on it.
And
like
then Forrest Teller's like, I need sunblock.
And surely you're joking, Mr. Feynman, which is
I love how Teller had like specially
like a slob of sunscreen
welded together
SPF 1000.
glasses.
Yeah,
he was prepared.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's like imagine seeing the actual. I mean, like he does a really good job with it in like especially like this part, right? Like there's so much of this this actual like explosion in it, right? Like recreating it. I mean, like, but imagine seeing this though, and like this is the culmination of like 2 years of your work. Is this explosion that? But it's like insane to the point that no one's ever seen anything like this before, right? Like it's an explosion bigger than anything that's come around. Like it's so much more than even like tons of dynamite.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but the bombing happens in like an hour and 54 minutes in, I believe.
About 2 hours, yeah.
It's roughly the 2 hour mark. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. My favorite part when it was quiet and I was like, okay, cool, we're hearing Killing Breathe. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
It's so jarring, right? It's so jarring.
Like, whoa, I wasn't prepared for that.
Also, can we just talk like all the like when they're testing like the implosion device, the fucking sound delays on all of the explosions for like how long it would actually take for the wave to hit? That shit was just fucking delicious to me.
Yeah,
because movies don't do that. Like even
Never.
the most like accurate like you watch like Saving Private Ryan. Every explosion, the boom hits you as soon as you see it.
Which is not at all
It's
how
not
it
how
happens.
it's done.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's. I mean, there's so much to love in this film about that kind of thing, where it's just accurate representations of physics. Not the least of which is the fact that it is completely divorced from math. People, like that's what people. I'm not a math person. Great, many of the best physicists aren't either.
Yeah.
Well, Oppenheimer
Oppenheimer specifically, not a math guy.
Yeah. And he like even basic math was not when I say basic, I mean like for science, like more complex algebra, like stuff that's not basic for me. Like basic for me is still like but like
in the Surely You're Joking, Mr. Feynman book, Richard Feynman says that physics is to math what fucking is to dry humping. And that's one of many reasons why I love Richard Feynman.
He was blunt. We love that.
But yeah, like there's just you never see that represented in films ever, let alone in a big blockbuster film where it's like it's actual physics
like
representation.
Accurate. Well, they have physicists on the set to like really make sure like everything was accurate, like even from like the formulas on the chalkboard, because there's gonna be some geeks that are like, well, but we did pinpoint one thing they got wrong was the American flags.
Oh yeah, because they have 50 stars, don't they?
Yeah, and we
they're supposed to
be
48. Yeah,
Hawaii wasn't.
Christopher Nolan's probably like, what?
It's gonna go back and eliminate all the cuts.
Hawaii and Alaska weren't at that point.
But that said, like I think it's astounding that to see, and that goes back to our conversation Interstellar too, right? Like how meticulous he was about showing time dilation and things along those lines, and like little things like the clicks, meaning like certain increments of time and so on and so on. Like that's his deal. That's his whole deal.
Which I don't know how much this played into why Christopher Nolan decided to do this project, but when in American Prometheus, when they're writing about like all the things that, so Oppenheimer was kind of like a frantic person far before this, right? Like, he was just kind of throwing stuff together. And at Berkeley, one of the papers that he wrote was the paper that actually theorized in the first place that like wormholes existed, right? Like he did like the basic calculation,
which is real, and the timing of it, which was, we'll go ahead and say ill-timed, was also real.
So the book cites Kip Thorne, who wrote Interstellar with him, saying like, oh well, Oppenheimer actually like single-handedly threw this thing that he didn't finish to the completion, right? Like he didn't do any experiment to show anything. He didn't have really the ability in his mind to like stick with any one theory for very long. But that founding paper actually like did a lot for the actual like astrophysics that Kip Thorne and would end up kind of.
Arguably, there was barely astrophysics before it, for sure. And like considering that you had to be like really into gravimetric math to like give a damn about that before, which most people will just charitably say we're not. Like it's again, if it had been timed, like if you want to talk about sliding door scenario, which for some reason is my go-to like parallel dimension movie still after all these years, and I am talking about the Gwyneth Paltrow vehicle. If you talk about that kind of scenario, like if that had published like a little bit earlier, a little bit later, like the entire like course of Earth history might have been different.
Yeah. Well, but my version of the Leonardo DiCaprio meme though was that book citing Kip Thorne right after we had done the Interstellar episode, and I was like, oh, I know.
Like, I know that guy from Interstellar.
Yeah.
Nice.
The Manhattan Project was one of great secrecy at the height of World War II. It's surprising then that so much archival footage of the event exists. This was a luxury that Nolan happily took advantage of, poring over the films to grasp an accurate sense of what Los Alamos looked like at its bustling peak. Being true to life is one thing, however, and something Nolan values highly, but that also needs to be balanced with making sure it's still a cinematic spectacle to behold.
It's a tricky balance with something as well documented as the Trinity test. And, it was, it's very inside baseball, as they say, but for filmmakers to look at the cameras they developed, the way they shot those tests, really remarkable, brilliant stuff. Shooting at frame rates far beyond what we can do now. All kinds of incredible technology, but archival footage is inherently distancing. We needed to be in the texture of the film with all of the imagery we created. So it was incumbent on us to be guided by and not contradict the documented reality, but to be expressive of it in our own way. I think it was fortunate for us that the bulk of the documentation of the Trinity test is in black and white. So at the very least, by bringing color to it, we're being forced to sort of make it our own. And a lot of what we did in both the shooting and then in particular in the editing of the sequence is really based on the first-hand accounts. It's more about what people said about it than what the photographs or the film had said.
One thing that couldn't be legitimately reproduced was obviously the atomic blast itself. Multiple techniques were experimented with by Nolan's special effects team, led by Scott Fisher and Andrew Jackson, to recreate the sparking flashes and fiery flurries of the explosion. Ping pong balls were smashed together, paint was hurled across walls, and luminous magnesium solutions were developed. By filming these events super close up at variable frame rates, they combined with director of photography Hoyt van Hoytema's sweeping IMAX cinematography to create in-camera effects that filled the screen with a power that such a monumental event demands.
Some of what we were shooting was main unit, some of it was being shot with Andrew Jackson on visual effects unit, and so we were seeing it in pieces. And I do remember one particular set of dailies that we watched that these guys had shot that really captured a feeling of immensity, black powder explosions and things. There were some extraordinary things to look at just to eye. But watching the dailies, you were seeing it develop, and with my editing brain on, and then with Jen Lane, the editor in the edit suite, you just start visualizing combinations and experimenting with combinations of imagery to give the feeling of what this must have felt like to watch this. What that gave me in the edit suite was this thread, this connecting the scientists of the Manhattan Project. We built the bunkers, we built the tower, we're out there at night preparing for these very large-scale explosive events that have to be conducted safely with great care. So there's a tension, there's an anticipation in what we're doing as filmmakers that I think helps the actors, helps everybody gain some small understanding of what must have been like to be there that night, that early morning at the Trinity test.
The end results are there for all to see. The moment the Trinity test explosion lights up the screen is a stunning example of practical effects work. A worthy rendering of one of history's most pivotal events, the scene never once forgets to take its eyes off the people responsible for it, with Cillian Murphy's face one that mirrors most who'll watch it.
Both beautiful and dangerous in equal measure, and that's what we'd ask for. So there is an iconic shot, I think it's the profile of Oppenheimer, seeing it. And that was always the intention. And I think part of the unsettling quality of the film is due to, you do feel engaged. You do feel you understand Oppenheimer. You're kind of on that journey with him. You're not judging him. And so when you're then made to feel differently about things or question things you've already seen, it is a little uncomfortable. It's a little unsettling. And I'm hoping that the film leaves people with a sort of, an uneasy feeling.
No one... By the way, rotary flip phone. Just got to throw that out there.
Yeah.
That's what no one definitely has, a rotary flip phone.
Yeah, but
meticulous. This dude is meticulous in this Chris
Mhm.
Nolan.
It's pretty funny to
Right.
be like, I wanted
There's
everyone
something
to
coming.
feel like this film was unsettling, and it's like, no, it is. No, you did a good job of that. Like,
Ambition
I don't really want to remember that fucking atom bombs existed or exist, and
Yeah,
that we have.
that's why we're all like
pretty-
this after the movie.
Well, and so one of the critiques of the film is that it doesn't show the devastation of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It doesn't show like the human cost.
It's called Oppenheimer.
Yeah, my response is just why would it?
There's plenty of documentaries and films that show the damage and from the perspective of those who were impacted by the bombs.
Well, also, just American Prometheus doesn't.
Yeah.
It's not really a thing that comes.
It's
like,
not the
there's no-
focus of the story,
yeah.
and people want. It's like, well, okay, so first of all, you can bitch about it being 3 hours long, or you can bitch about it not including everything. One or the other.
Yeah.
And second,
Yeah. Do you want to
so
be
we'll
4
start
hours?
with
Let's
that.
go.
And honestly, for my taste, it would undercut the story because it would make the story about something different. And again, you need to realize we have never seen physics representation on a big screen like this. Maybe ever, but certainly not since like, I don't know, 2001 maybe? Like you just don't see these kinds of scientific principles put forward as a narrative function in large mainstream movies, which this is. And so like to cram in like everybody wants their like pet thing of it's like when Obama gave the speech and he shouted out non-believers and everyone's, well, he didn't say brights. I'm like, because nobody would ever say bright.
Yeah.
Like, why would you think that would be a thing he would say? Like, he acknowledged non-believers.
And I think the line that really gets to the core of it, which is like a real, like was hit hard multiple times in American Prometheus, the book, but the line that's like it makes it into the movie. And he has it's very much said is I don't want 300 and plus years of like the result of all like centuries of physics to be this one atom bomb,
A weapon of mass
to
destruction,
be like a devastating weapon.
And
I really set Stevie up for that one, Oppenheimer. That's
no, but like so that really gets to the crux of the regret that he instantly.
Yeah.
And it being a mechanism and tool for war, whereas really it was like no, they were just they're doing the thing you do in science, right? You were chasing down, you're finding out the whys and wherefores, and you're chasing it down. And of course, it's going to get co-opted into weaponry. Of course, it is. That's what always happens. But like to have that be the only thing that someone's known for, or that the Manhattan Project's known for, or so on and so on. Like, yeah, it's
and the book lists
that's
out
the tragedy.
These other the book lists out all of these different things, as a theoretical physicist that he contributed to, right? Like
huge things that we take for granted these days.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
And so it's like it's kind of fascinating that like at the end of it, his instantaneously, right? Like the regret that he feels is like, oh shit, like no, the thing that physics is going to be co-opted into from now on, like with the Cold War, with the thing that everybody, including Neil Bohr, like the physicist that was his kind of mentor, that they smuggled out of out of fucking Denmark,
who made the Bohr model of the atom, which is I have too many layers on, but that's my carbon atom tattoo is a Bohr model atom.
So and there's like
Thank you.
Prometheus also does a good job with the fight between Bohr and Einstein, where Einstein instantly like his first regret was that he even like conceptualized quantum physics and quantum mechanics, because he was like, oh, I don't think that's real. And then so from that moment on, after the theory of relativity, he and Bohr got into these huge debates, and Einstein was like, yeah, I regret even coming up with those scientific principles. And then of course Einstein was the first person to sign the letter to Franklin Roosevelt that said, hey, like Germany might be working on an atom bomb and we should probably be working on our own project just so the Nazis don't wipe out all of humanity. And that instant regret too, it's like layers and layers and layers on top of each other, that this movie kind of handles in a really amazing way with that one line. I don't want the culmination of 300 years of physics to be a massive weapon. And it kind of is, like because of the fact that for the first time you can wipe out all of humanity with these weapons in a very short amount of time. That's why, right? Like it's not to use this as a pun, but like a quantum shift in the way that war works. Like even when you look at something like Napoleon, right? Like Napoleon going across Europe, it's still there's a lot of different points where you could stop somebody like that from getting all the way across Europe and defeat him in all of these different places. As soon as you develop like an atom bomb and you could drop it on a city and just keep dropping them on various cities and wipe out the entire human race at some point, like that, like stopping somebody like that becomes something that's a lot fucking harder.
Yeah, and one of my favorite scenes is when after the bombs are announced that they got dropped, and he goes and does a speech, and he seems a little nervous, and he's like, he's starting to actually. They show little instances of people burning, like he's imagining, like the destruction he's caused, and the shaking. I think Cillian Murphy explained like the shaking in the background. They use like a projector, and they just like they shook it, like they they reversed the image or something like that. And that's where it's like all the close-ups and the people were, stomping their feet on the bleachers. And I think that's like probably like my favorite scene in the whole movie, because he's starting to realize
it's pretty harrowing, frankly.
Yeah.
That's the quotes in that speech is the real speech he gave, where he's like, I bet the
World-
Japanese didn't like it. And then everybody's cheering. And he's like, I wish we dropped it on the Germans. And, like there's a lot of,
it's
American,
the locker up of that era. Yeah.
Well, American Prometheus, they talk about how, like Oppenheimer's not a general, right? Like he's a scientist. He's not someone who like can really rally up a crowd like that. And it's like he was almost like playing a role, which is something that they hit on over and over again in this book. Like he's playing the role of an administrator after being a theoretical physicist, or he's playing the role of like an establishment democratic figure, talking to Truman and kind of trying to ingratiate himself.
Get that crybaby out of here.
With the political system itself, right? So the Truman thing is really funny because I feel like Gary Oldman was
hold on, Zach, what were you gonna jump in on?
Well, just in regards to like his, the note about like his speech in that room being like actual quotes. Like this movie is the ultimate testament to that. No dramatic writing can live up to reality. Like the amount of the fucking percentage of this screenplay that is actual quotes and taken word for word from transcripts,
including
like
the hearings.
Yes.
Well,
it's one of the most incredible screenplays of all time, and most of it is just shit that the people in the movie actually said in real life.
Yeah.
How many pages is it? Do you know how many pages the screenplay is?
I don't have the screenplay. I do want to get it. I would assume
I would totally read
pages, roughly
over 100 pages.
I would not. I don't say this often. I would absolutely read the screenplay because I think that like it's so meticulously shot, like all of Nolan's stuff, right?
Yeah.
But like this is
150 pages.
I was right.
Wow.
Over
100. So his script reads 30 minutes faster than plays out.
It's also written completely in the first person, as if it's Oppenheimer, like rather than, which is kind of, I think he did it so he could later on.
It's better than second person. Second person is weird as hell. It makes you feel like you're in a video game.
I thought
but it's like every action, because he wrote out the actions even that that he expected like each actor to take, but it's written as like, I walk across the room. Oh, she says this to me. Like it's written in a kind of funny way. It's written like almost like a novel.
Is it all written like that, or are the Strauss parts written?
No, it's all written in the first person as if it's Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
I think he just did that to flex though, because Christopher Nolan just at this point has written so many like incredible screenplays that I feel like in some ways he's just like, oh, I wrote it in the first person, of course. Like everybody that read it was like, I've never read anything like this. Like this is a screenplay entirely written as if it's like Oppenheimer telling the story, which is not how the movie goes.
I like the idea of David Bowie being like the main inspiration for Oppenheimer's look. That's actually how, like, because if he was wearing like the military jacket, and they're like, "The fuck are you doing, Oppie? This is not you." And Christopher Nolan said that him putting on the hat and the pipe and the suit was very reminiscent.
He has a suit up
Batman.
scene.
Yeah. Batman scene. Yeah.
There's also
all you need is the score, and like if you were to rescore that scene with the back.
Yes.
I also like that, and this is in real life too, right? Like they really did, like Isidore Robbie really was like, it's not like this isn't you, like you're not a military guy, because everybody had to enlist in the army. But I also liked that, like he's like, you know what, you're right, and the first thing he does is put on the pork pie hat.
Because he's running around with the uniform on, which you're like, why is he wearing a uniform? That's kind of weird. Like it's
trying to be patriotic.
And like it makes sense, but then like he gets called out on
Mr.
it
Rogers.
by what's that guy's? That guy's great. The guy that was like quit with the uniform, whatever he says.
Well, that's, the guy's in real life is Isidore Robbie, and he
in real life, but I can't remember.
David Krumholtz.
Yeah, that guy's good. He's
by the way, he's been in so much stuff. I tweeted out like a David Krumholtz appreciation point, and Yeah, I
Sure,
tweeted
yeah.
out an appreciation post, and an account liked it. That's like David Krumholtz's Twitter, and I don't think it really. I don't know if it really is him, but the video seems like a cameo or something, and he's like, "This is really my Twitter, David Krumholtz here or something."
Wait,
And
what?
I can't tell if it's really the guy. Like, he's
I
only has
think I
like
looked him. I
700
don't think he's
followers.
on any. I don't think he's on any social media.
But,
'cause I
but
tried to look him up.
it's not
after.
AI. It's literally him saying, like, maybe somebody paid him on.
Maybe it's
Cameo
like
or
his
something.
like yeah, who knows?
It's
Or
the
maybe
same
it
as
just doesn't
like
think
you
it's
see
a
ads
phone.
for like mobile games that are the fucking Cameo logo is in the ad and it's like Snoop Dogg
Right.
saying you should play the game. So I think it's the same kind of thing.
I mean, I didn't
Hey,
expect there to be a
yeah.
Brendan Fraser hive, but there was on our Airheads episode.
Oh, really?
Wow.
I didn't know that, but I definitely would have expected that, like, Brendan Fraser has a fan club. People like
Yeah.
Brendan Fraser. He's like,
I do too. I just don't commit my online life to talking about it, but it's okay.
Gen
Wait.
Z girls are feral right now on TikTok. I'm just gonna say that. And
Wait,
Like
so
in general?
Conan, so they always are.
yeah, especially now.
They're running wild.
But Conan, I wanted to bring up the music.
Oh, the music in this is so killer, and yes, please, because one of the best things about the soundtrack, first of all, great. So thankfully, it isn't all Zimmered out, right?
Yeah,
But-
I was gonna say. Second of all, he stopped working with Hans Zimmer.
Right, I know. I was so ready to be like, all right, I'm gonna have to like this in spite of Hans Zimmer hacking it up, but the spaces, like the absence, like it's such a good use of subtraction as addition in composition. Yeah. Like it's so like it's honestly, if I don't know if they teach this kind of thing in like music composition courses or anything, but like you could teach that as far as like how can you have like a bigger impact in something like this where there's a big 70 millimeter huge frame shot and you want to like have it, well, you don't intensify, you don't pull a quiet place on it, which should have been quieter, frankly. That score is way too busy. You take it down, and it's like shellac level, like minimalism. It's great. I love it.
Well, so he's been working with Ludwig Göransson, who's like I
that
know,
guy's good.
Yeah. Well, so I know him not in real life, but like I know his music because he did the first 3 Childish Gambino albums. He did Camp, he did Because the Internet, and he did Awaken My Love, the one with like Redbone.
He did. He did Tenet too.
Yeah,
and he did the first 2 Creed movies, if I remember correctly.
He also did the music for Community, which is how he ended up.
Oh,
linking up
hell
with,
yeah, that's awesome.
Donald Glover in the first place, but yeah. So
Didn't he
it
also
was
do
interesting to see
Blade
him
Runner
in this.
2049?
Did he really? Oh wow!
I think I thought it was he and Zimmer because like Vangelis couldn't do it or something like that.
There's a long list of movies that he's done at this point, but it's funny that like the first like few times I've heard his like name at all, it's like fucking Childish Gambino shouting him out on various various albums, including when he did Bonfire, and he's like asked Ludwig is like a random thing, and I was like, who the fuck is Ludwig? The first time I heard that, and I'm like, oh, it's this guy.
Read anything like it when you're really in his world. You're like it's written as a first person, so everything is, you're kind of breathing, you're seeing everything from his point of view, and that was what I realized pretty early on, that's what the score needed to do. You needed to help the audience feel what he's feeling instead of judging him from what he's done. And he's such an interesting, complex, character. There's a lot going on inside, and that was the challenge. Like, how do we fill that whole spectrum of music, and how do we make it? At times, you're also seeing his inner dreams and visions that he has, and of Adam spinning around. You can see this if you see it in a theater, like you see it on a big screen, these visuals that you never experienced before. And that was extremely inspired for me, and that's what I wanted the music to sound like.
Another thing that I found was really interesting about the music is that it's very much a film dealing very much with science, with mathematics, with machinery, with war. I mean, all these things that you'd ordinarily describe as pretty cold and heartless. And yet, to me, it was very much a very warm, very organic score as well. Of course, there is a lot of electronic elements to it, but there's also very much the use of the orchestra, especially with the violin.
Yeah. The music to start from. His first idea was like, what I want to explore where we can bring the sound of violin. Especially, he wanted that to portray Oppenheimer, because it's a fretless instrument, and depending on the performance of the violin, you can go from a very, very soft romantic tone to, if you increase the vibrato or just the pitch a little bit, you can go into like an erotic manic state. And then you can add 4 players, you can add 8 players, you can add a whole orchestra on top of it. So you can really have like those peaks of dynamics. Sometimes the movie's extremely intimate. You see it just close up of his face, and sometimes it goes bigger than the biggest, and I think those dynamics changes and shifts in music and movies. It's very refreshing to see, and to be able to work in that was a real pleasure.
Who can forget the score in Tetanus? Yeah. No, but like
that score gave me lockjaw.
Yeah.
I fucking love that score.
Score's great. And
I listen to it when I want to feel manic and have the urge to clean.
It doesn't fall victim to Zimmerisms too, which we all.
Well, that's the thing, because like I'm a big Zimmer fan. But
kick you right off the show.
I've been saying this. I've been saying this for like since inception. Well, no, since like I knew about I think Göransson does what's known as the Zimmer sound. Better than Zimmer.
Yes, because at this point he phones it in. Yeah.
Zimmer's best scores are the ones that are not like his Nolan movies, like
Correct.
the Dune score or Rain Man or even fucking No Time to Die, which has some of the Batman stuff in it. Like.
Well, his real innovations come from his staff anyway, too. Like at this point, like he's mostly like, and the fact that I like that there's a turnaround that's kind of allowing new people into the field, or new people into the field, because like it's just like you don't have to get the exact same people. Like I think Trent Reznor was invoked in the comments. I like Reznor's scores a lot, but they're great. But it's also like, do you remember a time when it was just all, like everything Reznor was doing is all Danny Elfman? Those are great as well, but it's great to allow new people in. Like you can have more than like 2 guys.
Yeah.
And his score here is great, but his score here again, it's very thoughtful. The use of and that goes back to like whatever like old plays and stuff of like basically having an instrument represent a character on the screen. But again, it's the subtraction here that makes this artful. Because this is so over the top.
The old days of just like having like Eniko
Peter and the Wolf, I was trying to think of. That's
but the old days of having like Eniko Morricone do everything and just like have like so many fucking not files, but like what I mean, like so many just sound saved that he could just like give away fucking full albums for like somebody like John Carpenter. Like that's classic. I feel like they're getting back with that now with Ludwig Göransson as like a person.
Well, and the there's a few other people that are along those same lines that have that level of talent, but like for whatever reason, there's just like real conservative mindset towards scoring and music, especially in blockbuster films, that just makes everything kind of sound uniform and lame. Frankly, to me, like
when it's not needle drops, which is a whole
don't get me started on that. And like I've been a beneficiary of that. I've been annoyed by that, because for every Edgar Wright, there's like a lot of people were mad about the Super Mario Brothers movie needle drops. I'm like, I don't see how you can get upset about the Super Mario Brothers movie. It's like getting upset at like cotton candy. I mean, like, what did you think you were getting? Do you think watching a Cassavetes film? It's the Super Mario Brothers.
You throw in something like fucking Soderbergh, like the fucking you just have your headphones on and just like bump into whatever it is because you're like a half deaf autistic driver.
Movie I'm writing has a hell of a needle drop in it. I'm not going to say what it is, but it has a great needle drop.
I'm all for him. Hire me to put needle drops in your movies because I'm fucking great at them.
The needle drop is actually story important too, so that's why
and that's even better. And that's one of the reasons why I know Baby Driver is fraught, because of multiple sex pest reports of several of its leads, but definitely like a masterclass in usage of music in a very different way. But the idea is like there's lesser composers would have just done the more is more thing, and that wouldn't have worked for this movie because it's so like, again, we just talked about Possession, which is definitely a more is more kind of movie. In a certain way, but can you imagine if it had a really obnoxious, like overbearing score like during all of it? No, it wouldn't have worked. Like the only thing that would work is you gotta like, It's got to be a tool to accentuate what's happening. And sometimes that means pulling it down, leaving those just crazy silences like right before you just get the and it's like, oh yeah, that's okay. That is definitely an atomic bomb that just exploded. Cool.
Yeah. That's why I like hearing the breathing first.
I think this is
after Kristina gets her breathing. Yes.
I think this is kind of cool. So Wired had an actual atomic expert break down some of the actual building of the bomb in this movie.
Oh, I've seen this.
And the science behind it. I think I sent it in the chat last night too, but I thought
I saw on TikTok.
A couple minutes.
She's too busy on TikTok to see what's in the chat.
Bomb talk, you know what I mean?
The bomb talk. Yeah.
So plutonium's solid metal. Imagine you had a piece of steel and I said, push it on all sides to make it smaller. You need to shrink it by half its size exactly symmetrically. Each of these are the detonators. When they all go off, they're going to start a shock wave through this device. It's going to start going in. Inside that little sphere of plutonium is an even tinier sphere of polonium and beryllium. This thing, if you compress it, will shoot out some neutrons. That's meant to just start the reaction. You push the whole thing together and make an atomic bomb explode. This is called implosion. One of the things we see in the movie is the final assembly of the gadget. This is based on actual footage that was taken at the time. Even the lighting looks like in the historic footage that we have. This is a 100-foot tower. They've brought the explosive sphere out to the test site by the tower, and they put a big tent around it. You need this thing to be as controlled as possible. If you got a pebble in there, it could deform the shockwave by just enough to make the whole thing either not work or not work very well. So they want this to be a very pristine sort of environment, which is hard to do when you're in the middle of the desert. They're putting in this scene what's called the tamper plug. The goal is to have this sit right around the plutonium core in the middle of the bomb. This is a delicate operation. This tamper plug arguably is worth $400 million in 1945 money. They don't want to mess this up because once you put the plutonium in there, every little step of getting it closer to being a bomb makes it a little bit more dangerous to be around and radioactively, problematic. This core is on the edge of being explosive. It's also radioactive. It's also hot. Plutonium in that quantity is so radioactive that it's about 80 degrees Fahrenheit. They're dropping it through the center of the bomb. They've made a sort of trap door basically into the bomb so that the lens on top can come out. You can drop this thing in. In real life, they went to put it in and it didn't fit. Oh my God, have we totally messed this up? Wait a minute. It had to be the right temperature for it to fit. The outer part was cooler than the inner part was. And so they had to wait for them to reach the same temperature and then it just slid into place. So there had to be one person left in the tower to set it all up at the very end, stay with the bomb, do the final connections, and then head back. And this was, of course, a very stressful job. They had previous mock-ups that were set off by lightning in the distance. So they were in a very precarious state here. There's a scene before the actual Trinity test where General Groves is asking Oppenheimer about the possibility of this test destroying the world.
There's a chance that when we push that button, we destroy the world.
One of the real concerns was this problem of what they called atmospheric ignition. What if the nitrogen and oxygen in the atmosphere fuse together and release energy? Could they release enough energy that would trigger more nuclear fusion that then goes over the entire globe and leaves it a burnt, horrible cinder? Turns out that kind of equation is really hard to do. But let's imagine that it's 100 times easier than we think it is. We can sort of make very conservative extrapolations and we find it's probably not going to happen.
Chances are near zero.
Near zero.
What do you want from theory alone?
Oppenheimer is giving the correct scientist answer. They basically concluded it would be less than 1 in 3 million, something like that. In the 1970s, weapons scientists redid those calculations. Could you set the Earth on fire if you wanted to? Yes, but you need bombs that would be hundreds of thousands of times more explosive than any bombs we ever made, and you'd need to have much higher proportion of the ocean be made out of a rare isotope called deuterium, a different type of hydrogen. If you had this, you could indeed turn the Earth into a sun. The detonation took place very late at night. They wanted to see exactly how bright it was. And it's going to be harder to see that in the daytime when you're competing with the actual sun. They actually had recommended that the bombs be dropped on Japan at night because they would be more psychologically stunning. But for logistical reasons, they were dropped in the morning on both of the cities.
Yes. I was taking a drink at the end of that clip. It came as a surprise.
Yeah, I think it's number one, it's kind of terrifying that like they did take that gamble, and it's like like there's a chance that like the entire Earth could ignite.
Yeah, like how much of a chance? Well, not zero.
Yeah,
which is what you want that to be.
I also think it's
but that's a great great depiction of science versus like pragmatic government military.
Well, so what I'm saying is, or what I was about to say is like there's a big difference between being a theoretical physicist and being a scientific administrator, which it turns out what Oppenheimer did really well. I mean, he was a good theoretical physicist, but like what he did really well in this case was he was able to transform himself very quickly into a scientific administrator, which more than anything else, a lot of it is deciding which especially on a time frame like this, like which things that you actually wanted, that you actually can put your time, people, and resources into, right? So like a lot of the stuff is like they didn't know how to trigger an implosion, and there was a whole bunch
because there was no mechanism to do so. Literally, they had to invent it. But in that same way, he was brilliant as a theoretical physicist, but many theoretical physicists have no practicality to them, meaning they could not do the administrative part of it. So what he's remembered is like largely the administrative part of it. And it's and like, look, as someone that's very good at the business side of being in a band, hard relatable. Because I know plenty of people that are incredibly gifted as musicians and composers, and they just have not practically minded at all. And what happens a lot of times, if you're practically minded, then that's all you get remembered for. It's like, well, no, it doesn't mean I'm not like into the creative aspect of this. It just means that I'm good at this part of it because of like this weird intermeshing. And you don't see that on film either. And that's what's so cool to see.
I think that this film, I was going to ask you guys about how you guys feel about this. This film did a good job of showing that without like explaining that they're showing that with the
right. Hey, did you notice that Oppenheimer is good at both? Yeah, like
well, no, but like I think like
show it, don't explain it.
A very subtle thing that they do throughout this movie is they're showing the marbles, and each time that they add more marbles, right? And they're like fucking around with them a lot of times, but like is the amount of like uranium and plutonium that they're able to acquire, and it takes a long time to turn uranium into plutonium. The other thing that's real is that for some reason, like Leslie Groves got convinced that Russia doesn't have uranium, which Russia has like some of the biggest uranium deposits, or at least the USSR did, of anywhere on Earth. So like there really was a thing like, well, Russia's not going to get the bomb, like, telling yourself that because they don't have any uranium. And they, like the scientists in this movie, but also like in real life, had to keep correcting everybody up to like fucking Truman being like, no,
they
Russia have a shitload of like, they can very easily get uranium, dude. Like,
Zach, how do you feel about that?
About the uranium?
Not that last bit, but
no, I thought the marbles were
the science stuff. I'm like, yeah, whatever.
Well, but come on, it's a little compelling, right? I mean, like,
it is. I mean, I was when I was in high school, I was a big science guy. I eventually got to a point. My math skills, like, I'm good with numbers. I'm not good with mathematics.
But that's the thing. Physics and math, not the same thing.
Oh, I get it.
Right? And this movie does a good job of showing that.
Little bits of like.
All my friends took AP physics.
So my science interest kind of dropped off in like my senior year, but I've always loved science, and I've always loved movies that like I've always loved like hard sci-fi, and not that this is sci-fi because all this shit happened.
Right.
But
it feels
like
sci-fi though.
This does feel like it feels very 2001 in that it's like hard science rather than like fucking Event Horizon or like something else that's just like total bullshit. Right. I love all the science stuff in this movie, and it's actually part of the reason that I find it so rewatchable too, is watching the process of just the building the team and building and how we made the bomb and stuff.
Well, when we talked about Interstellar like a couple months ago, we were talking about how like Christopher Nolan's brother, who didn't co-write this script with him but co-wrote Interstellar with him, right? Went to Caltech, which is somewhere that that Oppenheimer also had like a relationship with. Like
Where smart people go.
Well, he would lecture there and stuff. I don't think he ever fully worked there as like a full-time faculty member. He was working at Berkeley, which is kind of funny because of what Berkeley's now known for, is like this free speech fucking movement, hippie college kind of. But like he started the program at Berkeley, and then he went to Caltech. And like, well, Christopher Nolan's brother went to Caltech, studied under Kip Thorne, and there's like a large relationship there, and
all tied together.
And so it's kind of fascinating for they like, I feel like both Nolans have like a relationship to that entire world.
Right.
But for science fiction, up until now, which now they're kind of doing like the real life version of that, right? Like telling the story of like the innovations that came out of that world, like in the real world, but it still feels like science fiction in a way.
It does, because again, that wasn't the focus, right? In the same way that the White Holes paper had been published a year and a half earlier, we maybe would live in a different world. But I also just say Bay Area representation, like seeing the UC Berkeley campus I was like, oh, like having lived in the Bay Area for 22 years of my life, it was like, and it really hasn't changed that much. So it's kind of awesome that like to be able to see it represented, because it's a huge part of the story, and like again the founding of like American physics, ostensibly, like it's like, if you're not considering just like whatever Einstein was up to, like you get to see that as a almost side effect of like the narrative arc for this movie, but it is rooted so clearly in the fact that his whole thing about like they're trying to tar him as like like a red, basically, and it's like, no, he has empathy for these struggling people, and is sort of like ostensibly a dilettante by the Florence Pugh character, right? Like by her metric of things, but almost enough to not get him a nod on the project by like the government.
He did read all 3 volumes of Capital in the original German on a train.
I love that. And it's I love that it's in the movie, and it's like, yeah, that is impressive.
But also like people were like, there's a lot of talk in like the book about kind of he understood it obviously on like an economic level, but like there's a lot of stuff where it's like the actual details of it. Feel like I don't know how well versed he is in that part of it, but like he did read. You know what I mean? Like he did read all 3 volumes of it, because
what does he say? It's like, oh, that's more than most of the party members have done. Yeah.
The other thing that's kind of fascinating throughout this is like the Neil Bohr's kind of ideas that kind of directly translated into Oppenheimer, because that's like the quote was like Neil Bohr is God and Oppenheimer is his prophet, essentially. There's a lot of he talks to him in the movie about this, but like there's kind of like a one world system kind of thing where Neil Bohr had this entire idea about arms control and how the United Nations could take over, which somewhat later happened with arms control treaties and stuff like that. But like he was kind of the father of arms control, and the idea that at some point you're going to have to give up some of your your power to an international body, which would then have to regulate and look at, which is kind of how the United Nations functions in some way now. Like look at your arms facilities and like your arsenal, and they're gonna have to make sure that you're not overdoing it and preparing for war. And he had this whole system that would have taken direct kind of access for whatever government, because they knew that very quickly other governments would start having their own atomic bombs,
and that was a threat. That was Heinlein like outright put it in his books that like he feared like the downfall of American society under like the world government, the Secretary General being like the big boss shot caller of the world, basically. I think it's Stranger in a Strange Land. He's like, and like whatever. I'm not saying Heinlein is like 100% correct. I'm just saying it was something that was in the zeitgeist, that like the idea of there being a world government was considered like something that you had to opine on if you were going to get a security clearance. Like, well, who do you think should be calling the shots? Well, us, of course, clearly us.
It kind of links up to I've been reading Gene Edward Smith's biography of FDR, and there's kind of the story of Wendell Willkie, who ran against him, and
Wendell Willkie
ended up dying in 1944, which means he couldn't win the Republican nomination. But he had the theory of the one world government, where he like went around and was like, oh shit, like with the amount of fucking war we have right now, like there might have to be an actual like one world system where everybody's kind of under the same international body, because like or we're gonna have world wars over and over again until the end of time. And the Neil Bohr thing, I think, is a smaller representation of that, where he believed that his own concepts about theoretical physics and his own like the scientific community could be used as the basis for the whole world, because constantly scientists are internationally sharing information, right? Like it's a community that functions as like its own system with its own ethical code, which is with its own practicality, which kind of military secrecy doesn't really jive with. So like the constraints that were put under everybody at Los Alamos to kind of be secretive and not be working with all these people that they would have been working with for decades internationally. The belief was that at some point you could just take the international scientific community and use that as almost like an international body, or as the model for an international body. But like that's kind of handled in a very quick back and forth in this, which I kind of thought was cool. Like when he's talking to Neil Bohr.
Well, because otherwise the story's going to get bogged down in that, which is that's not what this is about, right? I mean, like I don't know. I mean, Kristina, Zach, don't let the top half of this show dominate the conversation.
I know. I just find it staggering that the movie, even though you can say,
but you would do a scientist, right? Sorry.
It's 3 hours, so it has the real estate or whatever. But like the fact that the movie's able to address all of that stuff at all is like incredible to me.
Kind of mind blowing.
Because I don't feel it just pays lip service to anything. I feel every idea presented in the movie gets like properly examined.
Well, so that's a good point, because like hold on. Like I think you could make a rock solid feature length film from each of the ostensible 3 parts of this film.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like including the C-SPAN part, which I love. I love it.
Which
talk about that part.
PBS has done kind of. They took they did a representation of the entire
that's the
Oppenheimer hearing.
I think it's in the Criterion channel as a feature with the other movie that they made with this. But like, it's and that's almost like the sane thing to do, right? Well, if you're not Christopher Nolan.
But you can also like taking away the actual like full amount of dialogue, right? Like everything that's touched upon in the book and like in Oppenheimer's life. What's the important thing is the transformation from theoretical physics to science administration, and then the transformation, a full quantum leap from science administration to politics, which he's not a politician, but he's within the realm of policymaking as part of the Atomic Energy Commission for the rest of his life. Like he is inherently a political person, inherently kind of a politician from that point on. And that's the important part, I think, right? Like the things that you lose jumping to science administration, where you're no longer kind of doing the theoretical work, you have to delegate, which is its own set of things, and then jumping into policy making, which you have to constantly be giving things up, because you're like, well, I'm not the full voice here, I don't have the power, but like I need to stay within the realm of a political establishment.
Because he's almost thought of as lesser by his scientific peers, which in fact he's like best in class for like the actual theoretical physics part of it, but because he's good at these other things as well, by nature of a polymath sort of attribute to his personality, means that like he's good at the politics part where no one else could be. He's good at the administrative parts where no one else could be. But it sucks because like there's this conceit amongst scientific establishments, like, well, if you're doing that stuff, then you're not doing pure science, right? And you get a little bit of that, like, and it's mostly just like little catty bitch stuff that.
Here you can only get yourself far.
All right, but
he's the first one to be like, I'm not practical. I'm not like a practical physics guy. Like, I'm not going to be like shooting things through the collider. Like that's not my deal. Like,
or like he's like, there's things I want to test with the collider, but I'm not going to be the one that what I mean.
No, he knows that's not his bailiwick.
I can't even hold a beaker without smashing it. So
no hands, but
But I wanted to pivot for a second, because Christina's getting bored. I wanted to throw in some Cillian
I'm looking
Murphy.
like the disappointing Cillian Murphy me right now.
I wanted to throw in some Cillian Murphy because it's
Yeah, he's in the movie apparently.
We've gone an hour and a half talking about
science and math and bleh.
Right,
hasn't been that much about science and math, but okay, sure. Yeah.
And we met all the most brilliant people in the world. But what I was interested in was what all that knowledge and insight and theory does to your perspective and your view on the world.
Yes. Early on in the movie, you see a young Oppenheimer having a series of visceral panic attacks.
Yeah.
And I would have had something similar getting the script from Christopher Nolan, going, I can't turn this down. This is the role of a lifetime.
We're in a race against the Nazis.
How on earth am I going to do it justice?
Yeah.
And I know what it means. If the Nazis have a bomb.
Was there a similar, I can't do it, but I've got to do it feeling?
My history with Chris is that I'll always say yes to him. You know, we've worked together for 20 years, and I adore his work.
Oh, having trouble.
I think he's one of the greatest directors of his generation, one of the greatest living directors. There's no one making films like him. So to answer your question, you just say yes.
You just say yes.
You just no, any actor in the world would say yes to Chris. But yeah, the roles that I love are the ones that you go, oh fuck, I don't know if I can do that. I don't know if that's possible. It's so terrifying in its vastness, and this was one of those. So you just dive in. I lent very heavily on Chris throughout the whole process.
Because he is the expert of experts, and you can ask him anything, and he's got this perfectly just so answer for everything.
Yeah.
It must be such a warm experience going, he's always there.
He's always there. And he, by the way, does understand all those physics questions that you might pose to me. Like, he would be able to answer those. He is that brilliant. And he wrote the script. So, you know, you have that resource there with you all the time.
I love that scene where you and Emily Blunt are flirting over the question of, can you explain quantum mechanics to me?
Yeah.
And I went, I don't know how you're making this sexy, but well done, guys. Impressive work.
That's Emily.
She does that.
Yeah.
That's happening, isn't it?
You work across some incredible people in this movie. I can be as ridiculously, over the top here as I like. It's absurd. Robert Downey Jr. and Emily Blunt, as you've already mentioned. You've got somebody who's not afraid of or scared of explaining complicated ideas on a blackboard, Matt Damon. Done it a few times.
He has.
There must have been a few moments when you were spending days upon days with him going, can't we just muck about? Like this is tough stuff.
Why? How about because this is the most important thing that ever happened in the history of the world?
Was there room for any sort of levity, or was it always focused?
It was both. There was incredibly focused, and then in the very brief downtime that we had, there was a lot of joking around. And, because I know Emily from working with her before. Matt's very, very close with Emily.
The Adjustment Bureau.
Yes, indeed, and they're neighbors in New York. And like, Downey is one of the funniest people you could possibly meet, one of the most entertaining people you could possibly meet. But again, so rigorous and focused in the work. And like, for me, every day, you look at the call sheet and you say, "Oh my God, Ken Branagh is in tomorrow," or Gary Oldman is in tomorrow.
Who's now done Truman and also Churchill.
Yeah.
Can someone
we
get
need
in
to talk
Stalin?
about that.
Go figure.
It's the hat trick. I want to see it done somehow. But you have to channel the voice as well, and a voice that ages.
Yeah.
How did you begin that work?
Well, like, from the beginning, we didn't want to do an impersonation or an impression. That's not part of my skill set at all. However, like, he was very distinctive in the way he spoke, and that kind of timbre and that pitch that he had.
Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. I suppose we all thought that one way or another.
It's an accent you don't hear anymore.
No.
Like in American, it's very kind of like Orson Welles.
Actors are actors, and one aspect of it is the political game.
Mr. Rogers, kind of from that same world.
Yes, Mr. Rogers.
Yeah.
But the toughest thing is to love somebody who has done something mean to you.
Yeah.
Mr. Rogers.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I love the line in this that kind of sums up like his whole like what Oppenheimer's like entire, I guess, aesthetic was, which is when he's walking in and Robert Downey Jr. is like, "I'm a self-made man," and he's like, "I can relate to that. My father was one of those." And there's like such a good distillation of like his background and why he is kind of in some ways so theoretical about things and so disconnected. Is like, oh yeah, like this guy had like rich parents that, you know what I mean, like his dad did real well, like monetarily. So he got to go to Europe, and literally the whole incident with the apple when he poisoned, which
didn't happen.
well,
according
no,
to his
it did
grandson.
happen. It did have he actually did, and then someone found out about it. They don't know how someone found out about it, but his parents had to come from America, pay money to go on like a ship to come to America to beg for Cambridge not to fucking expel him for trying to poison his tutor.
Yeah, like his grandson is kind of bitching about stuff that were inaccurate or like, you know, urban legends and stuff like that. I'm like, if it happened, it happened. It's a film. It's you
If
know,
he dies, he dies.
I do like the idea that Cillian Murphy said that the point is not to imitate someone. Like you can't just be listening to like speeches in the headphones and try to sound like it's evocation is the key. You got to have the essence of the person you're portraying because these were real people.
The Mr. Rogers thing's especially interesting because its cadence is so even, and so calm, right?
Yeah,
and like it's like no, I can totally see that now that
that's why Cillian Murphy does audiobooks.
Yeah, does he? Okay.
It's also funny that Oppenheimer and I mean Mr. Rogers too, but like they're such like slow, deliberate talkers. But like the whole point of like the the Manhattan Project was to get this done fast. So it's funny to like imagine like a guy that's like trying to make decisions and he's like, well,
just because you work fast doesn't mean that you have to talk fast.
I know.
And just because you think fast doesn't mean you have to speak fast. But like it's
I'm a fast talker.
It is funny. Yeah, that's a bunch of whatever. There's a show of fast talkers.
Also, there's so Los Alamos really did have, and I something that I wanted to bring up with this. I feel like building a film set is a lot like the construction that happened at Los Alamos.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, where you're like doing stuff like with like. Here's a budget. You got like 2 months to complete it. Go.
Yeah, and you have to build an entire town.
Yeah,
think of, like the Blazing Saddles thing where they build the town and then they
but that's real.
just to do a shootout.
Absolutely.
But it's kind of fascinating. Los Alamos, they built the dormitories really fast to the point where they're talking about the atomic bomb while construction workers were still like working on the Los Alamos thing, which is like that's bad security. I'm just gonna say it. But they also like. There was a like Saturdays are for the boys policy kind of where they stopped working for the weekend, so they would only work Monday to Friday.
Everybody's working. No, that's the wrong song.
They would have these parties and they would bring a bunch of lab alcohol because lab alcohol obviously like the proof is really high and they couldn't really like just get alcohol in like Santa Fe or whatever. So they
make some moonshine. Sure.
And also they found out at one point that a lot of like the single women that were hired to be like stenographers and stuff were the scientists were like paying them for sex like at times.
Shocking.
Like so there was like this there's like this very dormitory part and they called them like the dormitories like this very party atmosphere at the same time as being this breakneck speed like
so again, I feel like half of the show is Forrest talking about the book, right? But like, there's other perspectives that validate that. The serial joking Mr. Feynman talks about some of the Manhattan Project. He has a different like take on it, and like you can kind of read between the lines on certain things. But yeah, like they got up to some nonsense. You know, it's like what are you gonna do? And it makes sense because when you think about it being like a relatively unnatural scenario that everyone's being put in, like of course there's gonna be like. There's going to be things that people are going to do whether you plan for it or not, basically.
Yeah. I like, watching the press tour and all that. I've never seen Cillian Murphy this excited during a press tour out of any of his movies that he's done.
It's a role of a lifetime.
Yeah.
Really?
Like,
you're
really engaged. I'm like, you're not like this for once.
Yeah,
this
I mean,
I found the thing that I sent you where it was him and Florence Pugh and they were like
the
smiling.
flowers, boom.
Yeah, this is
it's us.
This is from that interview. This
Definitely. And for you, Emily, like getting to work up close with like Cillian on this and seeing him kind of become Oppenheimer, what was that like? Because it's a very intense role for him.
Well, I think it was just a huge thing to shoulder. We were all so impressed and mesmerized simultaneously by what he did every day, and just a monumental
them
thing.
paired up in
And
these interviews, and they have
he's one of those
Cillian and
extraordinary
Florence Pugh
actors who can
paired
just
up
play
for
the
these interviews.
duality of
Oh,
every
yeah.
moment. And I
I've
think
seen
we
this.
want that for this character who's so enigmatic and charismatic, and he's also just a doll. He's like so lovely, and we'd laugh between takes. There was levity. It wasn't all like super intense. It was a very calm set. There was no chaos. And it's crazy that the film has become as sort of startling and visceral and impactful as it is, because I think on the set it was calm, wasn't it? It was nice. It was like
Chris
a nice
and Emma
environment.
are so prepared that the set is just, they're ready for anything. And so Chris also really understands actors and acting, and so he's very good at kind of creating an environment where his actors can thrive.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and it shows in the film. And you know, I came away obviously feeling very emotionally changed, and I really felt the weight that these characters had to bear. For you guys, did you come away feeling changed in any way? How did it affect you working on this project and working with each other and Nolan?
I mean, I remember telling Nolan on my last day, I like hugged him and said how much the whole thing had meant to me. And I just know there are certain experiences where they're like the fingerprints of the experience will live on you forever. And it's just so, I'm so honored to be in the movie. I've been proud of films before, but I'm so honored to be in it. And just watching him work and learning what really is the right environment for actors to thrive. Like, he's one of the directors that offers that. And I know that this film is going to be very lasting for people. I can feel that already with you guys and what you say about it, and people wanting to go and see it twice, 3 times, 4 times. And just because there's so much to absorb. It's the most substantial, exhilarating film. And it's deeply moving. So I think we're just thrilled that it's coming out.
Yeah, that people are that everybody's going to get to see it now. You know, and it is, you know, one of the great performances. I think.
Yeah.
Killian's just incredible. And,
Look at him staring at us.
Look at him just
He
giving me
knows
the
it. Those eyes.
He's looking at me.
Tell me about it.
He's like the Mona Lisa.
Yeah. But Chris from the outset said that was the whole thing was riding on that performance, and watching the two of them, because it really was the two of them together kind of building that performance. They were in complete unison, just so dialed in together, and that's why it worked so well.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's.
I guess the other clip is the one with the flowers. Now that
Yeah.
look here, but I'll play that after this. But the thing that I think is really funny that I saw a clip where it's Matt Damon and Emily Blunt is that they're obviously they're neighbors in New York City. Like I think they live 1 floor apart or something like that. So
Mhm.
Christopher Nolan like came to Matt Damon's house and was like, and they like obviously they've worked together a million times, but so. Like he went there and he was like, hey, do you want to do this movie? And gave him the script, and he's like, when are you gonna know if you want to do it? And like was kind of pressuring him, like trying to get him to agree to do it. He finally came back the next day and he's like, all right. And then he made an appointment with Emily Blunt in LA because he didn't want to make it seem like he was going to the same building twice to ask people to be like, he didn't want to make it seem like he's like, who lives in this building? Like who can I cast for this movie? Like who's
Sure.
I don't know. I just thought that was such a funny little like anecdote. It's like that is awesome.
He's such an interesting character.
Yeah.
Like as a person, which is like he's almost like a character in like one of like a Nolan movie.
And it's funny too because he did a cameo of like Thor Ragnarok where, you know, Loki kind of secretly takes over and like they're doing that play and he's playing Loki and I'm like, is that Matt Damon? Like
yeah.
Matt Damon seems like a nice guy. Like I don't know, he's
very
always
pro, you know, union and like, you know.
Yeah,
I'm not like
there's this clip that when
gets out of context.
There's this clip that somebody sent around. I'll find it for like if we do an after party at some point in the future. But like he's talking about teachers unions. And like there's this libertarian like Reason TV like reporter that's like trying to talk shit about teachers unions, and he's like he just goes off on them and fucking
Good for Matt Damon.
he's like teachers do this because they love this. You think they're trying to just make shit wages because they just want to, you know, make money out of it? No, they love doing this. And he's like if you make money as a cameraman, I don't know if you're a good cameraman or not. You might be a terrible cameraman. And he like just absolutely just
goes off,
destroys the fucking libertarian anti-union people. But all right, so this is the one that I was trying to find with Cillian Murphy and Florence Pugh.
This is the flowers. Okay.
Yeah, you got chemistry.
I like that I would try to balance this out between you know, nerding out about the book and like how cool that was and like the scientific part of it, and Kristina wanting to see more Cillian Murphy.
And Florence
This is
Pugh.
why it's a blockbuster. Yeah.
Yeah, and Florence.
You know what's going to happen.
I know, I do.
Let's see.
What? Thank you so much. Do you want the bag?
Every time.
Thank you.
Now, Killian, obviously you're no stranger to a Nolan movie, but this is your first time stepping into a leading role. So what was your reaction when, you got the call? And Florence, for you, what was the reaction? Because this is your first Nolan movie.
It was a complete and utter shock. That's Chris's kind of MO. He just calls you out of the blue when the script is finished and they know that they're shooting. And it was Emma, his wife and producer, that called me. And I genuinely didn't know anything. And it's one of those calls that you get a few times in your career if you're lucky. And this is one of them. So, I had to sit down and then begin to process. And then immediately you start to go to work. That's your kind of instinct. Is the joy is amazing and the kind of elation. And then it's like,
let's get into it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All America's industrial might and scientific innovation connected here.
Similarly, however, I didn't really know what was going on or what it was that was being made, except I knew that Chris really, really wanted me to know that it wasn't a very big role, and he understands if I don't want to come near it. And I was like, it doesn't matter. Even if I'm a coffee maker at a cafe in the back of the room, let's do it.
Yeah.
But no, it was obvious, and we met for a drink in New York at the time when I was currently shooting A Good Person, and it was at the end of a shooting day, and I remember he was actually doing a scout the next day. And it was just one of those bizarre moments in your career where you're like, I'm meeting Christopher Nolan at the end of my shooting day. Oh my God. And I remember he apologized by the size of the role. I was like, please don't apologize. Please. And then he said, we'll send you the script. And you just read it and you decide if it's like, I completely understand the sizing thing. And I remember even when I got the script being like, I don't need to, I know I'm going to do it. So yeah, it was huge.
Obviously, it's been a long time since Adjustment Bureau.
Did you see his outfit today?
It's giving.
Check out the poster. And then look at the outfit today.
Same.
It was the first thing I said to you on that carpet.
I didn't think of it until you
said it. I saw you a mile off with your sleeves rolled up, and I was like, yes.
So it's been a long time since that film.
Too long.
Too long. We finally you guys in a movie together.
Yeah.
I think, what was it? One bit of dialogue between you guys?
I think I said General.
Yeah, and I granted
Mrs. Oppenheimer. And then you went, hello, son. And that was it.
That didn't make the final cut.
I know, it was a great line. That was a great.
But would you guys have thought all those years ago that you'd be doing another movie together and a Nolan movie, no less?
I know. And I'm just saying my name's before yours on the poster, which is a source of contention between us.
Which is, well, it's full circle now,
Yeah, Matt just pulled me off the streets to audition for Adjustment.
Pulled her right off the streets. Nobody had ever seen her before.
No one had heard of her, and look at her now.
Before you on the poster.
Outbilling me on the poster.
I know.
There's a moment in the movie that I really love where we see Oppenheimer and he's wearing this army uniform. And someone says to him, like, this isn't you. You're a scientist.
Yes.
Why are you wearing that? And I think it really highlights how clothing can help us unlock and harness ourselves and who we are.
Yep.
Yes. Sure.
Also, people were bitching about the age difference between Cillian Murphy and Florence Pugh, and I'm like, shut up.
What's the age
she's younger
difference?
than me. Yeah, because he's 47 and she's like 27. And I'm like, he looks like 10 years younger. It's fine. Don't worry about it.
Once you're over 25, it's
the things that people are bitching about this movie are like weird. Like all of it's deeply weird to me. Like, I mean, all right, like I get like whatever if you're like if you're interested in whatever side of the story and then you don't see what you wanted to see, like, all right, that's like whenever people do any kind of real like movie about real life, right? Like there's always that. But then like the age gap thing is weird. It's very fucking weird.
It's very common
people are
too
really
in movies.
really obsessed on that in recent years, and I find myself. It's hard for me to care.
Lauren
frankly.
Bacall and Humphrey Bogart, they had an age difference. No
Like,
one
wait till
bitched
you hear
that.
about literally all of movies through all of time.
I did think that the Oppenheimer porn lady was really funny though. That like she like that whole thing where her husband had like a porn addiction or whatever she claimed. And I think it's just that she caught him watching porn once, and like it was like an evangelical fucking couple. But she did that whole video where she's like, "It was so hard for us to just sit there, and I made him like he had to look at the ground." And I was like, "Dude, there's some titties. Shut the fuck up." Like it's not even like you're not seeing. It's not like porn.
Yeah.
Like you literally the most you see is some titties. It's Florence Pugh's
Yeah.
titties. Every time she walks on the fucking red carpet, you see that anyway. She always
Yeah,
wears
Florence
really
Pugh's
good-
like, free the nipple,
Yeah.
let's go.
Yeah, she's
Mad respect for the queen, though.
She's definitely of the living free mindset for sure.
Yeah.
And we thank her for it. I don't think the movie, as masterfully as it is made and as masterfully as directed and scored and so on, works without the cast being as attuned to each other as they are.
Oh yeah, it's one of the greatest movie cast. Oh, well, there are so many things that are superlative about this movie, but it is genuinely like one of the greatest casts in the history of cinema. And it's the kind of like you don't get casts like this anymore. Like I can't think of a movie that's post like the 70s that has a cast like this.
Or at
Wes
least
Anderson certainly tries to do it with every one of his movies, but
that's the thing. He has like the main
tries.
Wes Anderson has a main cast that can rival the main cast of this movie, but he doesn't have where like the 50th person in the cast list is Gary Oldman, you know, that kind of thing.
As fucking Truman.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is amazing. And
Crybaby.
like, and I had the same moment that Lindsay had of like, Robert Downey Jr. be like, oh shit, is that Gary Oldman?
Yeah, I did too.
You didn't drop the bomb. I did. It's why you feel guilty.
And it's great.
Truman, I guess, throughout like the years, kept hyping up that story. So like the first time, I think it strikes an interesting balance between the times that he hyped up the story, where he pulls out the napkin and he doesn't quite say the line. But Truman, at some point by like the end of Truman's life, he was saying that he was like, "Oh, you got blood on your hands? Here, wash them off then." And here's the fucking napkin. And like that's not. I doubt that's what happened in the actual thing, but it's kind of funny. Both Oppenheimer and Truman are like these self-mythological. Like I guess the self mythology that both of them built for themselves later in life, right? Kept on getting bigger and bigger because all of these people that we deal with within, any kind of history, but like especially American history, are egotistical as fuck and deeply and have parts of them, I think, that are deeply either regretful or deeply like insecure. So I think that the cast in this did that pretty well. Like Truman's bravado with being the guy that just like came out of nowhere and within like 2 weeks of fucking like becoming vice president was suddenly president, like the bravado and like incisive decision making that he had to do, and because everyone's like, look at this fucking bumpkin, this bumpkin.
He had a lot to prove to like what we would call today the Beltway, right? Like they didn't believe in him or believe he would deserve to be there. But by the same token, how great is like the small scale scene of like where they're deciding where to bomb in Japan?
Yeah.
And he's like, oh no, I went there on my honeymoon. It was a lovely place.
That was improvised too.
Jesus Christ.
Every time. So I've seen the movie 4 times, and every time that line got morbid laughter.
Yeah, because that's like, what can you? It's like, oh fuck, because that's how it's done, right?
Yeah.
That's how it's done.
That's how they decide to bomb a place. I mean, come on, look at Obama's drone strikes. Anywho,
Oppenheimer. Where's
can we talk about like, okay, so there's a joke among the, Strauss getting, not getting his, commerce, whatever, and they say JFK didn't vote for him, and someone was oh man, Christopher Nolan missed the opportunity to go, and JFK will return, and I'm like, this is not going to be having a sequel.
JFK will be here in Oppenheimer too.
Well, I do love how all the Strauss stuff, all the black and white stuff, is very reminiscent of the movie JFK.
Yeah.
That being said,
yeah.
After he was denied his Senate position,
he was the first one to get denied too, in since
35 years, but Strauss lost like all of his political influence after that.
Yeah.
So I think the idea that he was involved with like JFK's assassination is just where he had no strings to pull.
Yeah. Well, no, he definitely wasn't involved in JFK's assassination. But the thing that is funny though, he lost his political influence and like political capital, but he did retain, at least for like a while, his like position at the the research. Oh look, Andy's fucking just popped up. At the he retained his position at Princeton as the head of the board, while Oppenheimer was the director of the Scientific Research Institute or whatever, and they had to stay there for decades together, going back and forth after all of this had gone down, continuing to snipe at each other at Princeton, with neither of them having any political influence, because they had both been kind of kicked out of like establishment circles during the McCarthy era, but like their relationship had to keep continuing because they lived in the same fucking place, which is hilarious. I think it's like what's your hell? Like, number one, you don't have any political influence. Number two, like you're stuck with like the guy you hate most in the fucking world.
Yeah.
And they continued having these weird vindictive petty like fights where they would try to get the board to oust the other person, but like neither one was going to get ousted by the board, so they're just kind of stuck in purgatory together.
Right.
Well, what's the worst? What's worse than mutually assured destruction is if you both survive it.
Yeah. But JFK,
by the way, J. Andrew World basically playing the Gary Oldman role of like look at that cameo.
Yeah. But JFK, LBJ,
Yeah, but he had power, so
that's good.
JFK, LBJ, and Stuart Symington
Sees in the shadows
ended up being the three votes that they had to sway in order to have Louis Strauss be denied or not denied confirmation. Which I saw people complaining about that JFK line. He's like the one guy that was left that hadn't made up his mind yet.
You have to mention the three of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was also the one he whipped the other two votes too.
Yeah.
Kennedy.
Yeah. Well, and it's cool that people are that granular that they get upset about
in
that.
The history buffs.
Because it's think about again what I will just now charitably call the C-SPAN back third of this movie.
Yeah.
Which is I love. But I love advise and consent, movies like that. Of course I love it.
To advise and consent.
Which is beautiful. It's gorgeous stuff.
Yes.
But Nolan manages to make in a movie about the founder of the atomic bomb. It'd be is this guy's confirmation going to go through or not? I can't wait to see what happens. Amazing.
For
That's
Commerce
astounding
Secretary.
filmmaking.
It's not even.
Commerce Secretary.
It's not even the position that he was seeking.
It's not even something cool.
Nothing to do with science, research, anything.
No.
He wanted to be Eisenhower's the guy that did fucking granular trade policy. Pretty much that was.
but the thing is, though, is it grabs you right from the get go. So you're just along for the ride. There's no ramp up. There's nothing. You're just boom. You're at a full sprint, and you're okay. I'm here. And that momentum carries you for quite a ways into that movie, and then you're actually invested in everything else. So that works.
And so you're invested in every character one way or another, no big or small.
Yeah.
But Louis Strauss all just kind of sucks, and Robert Downey Jr. does an excellent job making you realize this guy sucks.
I decided to just for the purpose of this discussion, I decided to pull up famous commerce secretaries, right? Let's look at this. Let's look at this crew, huh? Let's check them out, right? Okay, who can forget Peter G. Peterson from Illinois?
Who?
Under Nixon. Yeah, great.
PDP, as I like to call him.
Same energy as Aaron A. Aronson.
Exactly. You could I feel like AI made most of these names. I feel like.
Oh yeah.
Malcolm
Bud
Baldridge
Brown?
Jr. Great. Okay, fine.
Each fucking president also has 3 different commerce secretaries.
Yeah.
There's a high turnover rate.
I don't know any of these people.
I consider myself pretty well versed in American political history, and I don't recognize a single. Oh, I know Robert.
I know Daley. Yeah, how can you not know Daley?
Yeah. So out of
Norman Mineta,
80 years, and I recognize 2 of the names.
Gary Locke. I forgot about Gary Locke.
Oh my god.
Gary Locke sucks. No, but the point is
Barack Obama had 7
oh my god,
commerce
Wilbur
secretaries.
Ross. I forgot about that.
Yeah,
guy.
Wilbur Ross is
Each of
maybe
these
one of the
guys
more notable
lasted-
ones, but that's
Each
not
of
a
these
good
guys
thing.
lasted about 6 months under Obama.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the point of that bit, not just to goof on people in our government, is to say that it's a nothing job, really.
Yeah. But he was it's I need this. I'm like, no, you don't.
It's a make work job / a let's reward my political ally kind of job.
Yeah.
For the most part.
But they're like, nah, you witch hunted Oppenheimer.
Yep.
We like him now.
Now we like him, exactly.
Yeah, he begged Florence Pugh. We like him.
Mm-hmm.
He did it for the committee, so
I'm looking at the only president I guess that really did had blockbuster level fucking commerce secretaries was FDR with Hopkins and then Wallace kind of being there. That's the only guy that was Christopher Nolaning it with his commerce secretaries being
Is that
everybody in my cabinet is a fucking A-list actor and they're all making appearances.
Yeah, if you're the Avengers of administrative government, sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
It helps if you inherit the country at its absolute fucking lowest point. since like the Civil War. I think that's the secret. If you want to have a good president, you want to have like a good presidential, like a good cabinet. You need
Make
to
sure
have
stuff
fucking-
sucks really bad.
Yeah.
beforehand.
There needs to be a serious calamity around the time of the election, like it's an economic disaster or something like.
Well, those are like the hinge points, right? Like you have the chance to remake the world if you inherit it at its lowest. You don't really if everything's going great, you're not exactly going to be like, let's switch things up a bit. Like
You don't change horses in midstream.
Yeah,
as we learned on Wag the Dog, yeah.
And well, as Honest Dave said too, there was his
I think it's the back third of this is eminently watchable, and it's astounding that it got away with being in a
not
film.
even Treasury Secretary. It's like Commerce Secretary is lower than Treasury Secretary. Like,
in the presidential line of succession. Oh, don't get me started.
No, I'm just saying like in terms of who has
in terms of anybody caring
influence
about it,
over the
okay.
cabinet.
Sure.
Like there's not even, you don't even control the Federal Reserve. Like you don't even have that power.
Yeah.
Like you know what I mean? Like you're literally just doing trade policy. But Louis Strauss,
you're a mouthpiece for the Chamber of Commerce, is what you are.
Yeah, but Louis Strauss, from shoe salesman to possible Commerce Secretary.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and it that shouldn't be as compelling as it is, and that's a testament to the filmmaking and the fact that it works. It all works. But
it does make sense that Truman would want a show salesman in his cabinet because he is in fact a haberdasher, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I mean that would have worked if it wasn't Eisenhower that was trying to get him into.
You're right. That's Truman.
Wrong haberdasher. Look, people.
Well, Eisenhower's bald, and he could have bought a hat, and so.
Letterboxd is a place for film lovers to congregate, talk at with and to each other about the films they love, the films they didn't love, the films that may or may not involve any haberdashers at all. Who knows?
This one did.
By the way,
This
isn't
one did
Daniel
at least
Day-Lewis? Wait, is a shoemaker and a haberdasher? Those are different things, right? Those are
Haberdasher is just a hat salesman.
haberdashers hats. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
It's a hat guy.
But this movie had one haberdasher at least in it.
There's at least one hat guy in it too.
He could have.
Sure.
Yeah, he could have. What if it was Truman that sold the pork pie hat to
What if? We'll forever be waiting. All of this, of course, best expressed succinctly, but not everybody. Everybody gets to have their say, not just the Siskels and Eberts of the world. It's a bottom-up democracy. People get to be, they're into it, they're not into it, they're weirdly horny for it, they're not so
They're
weirdly
angry
horny for
Commerce
it.
secretaries that are, right, and not.
They're pissed off about their confirmation hearings. Everyone gets to have their say, right? And of course, best expressed succinctly, these are the Letterboxd one-liners for Oppenheimer. Let's go, baby. My girlfriend dabbed when Oppenheimer won the case. This is cinema.
I like that it's two sets of hearings. It's not. It's for like it's his hearing, and then it's another. Like it's not even like they're not telling the story of like because most movies will try to do one hearing. Most movies will be like, oh, this is the story of this movie has two hearings going on simultaneously on different timelines, and you can tell that because one of them is like very bright and the other one's black and white.
And I chose my words carefully when I said C-SPAN. That's all I'm going to say. Me watching the atomic bomb go off. That's cool, I guess. Me watching cross-cut scenes of men yelling at each other in rooms shot in 70mm. Now this is cinema.
Yeah.
Well, it gets crazier too because there's a point where he's screaming at
the white.
When he's actually screaming, when he's screaming at Oppenheimer, and he's like, so did you do it? And it's like,
screaming at you in 70mm.
I'm like, oh god.
Oppenheimer, or how I learned to start worrying and regret the bomb.
Yeah.
You don't have half as much blood in your hands as I do, crybaby scientist.
Why did we as a society stop putting intermissions in movies? Amen. Amen, Alex. Because can I tell you, I had to stop to take a pee break both times I saw this.
I didn't. I went full Barbenheimer. I made it.
Well, bully for you. I'm just saying. I'm with Alex. Whom amongst us would not risk our life and career to see communist Florence Pugh one last time?
Yeah.
I know.
You know, She never even wears. I mean, she wears clothes, I guess, in that one scene, but like the rest of the time, you know what I mean? She's just.
Well, it depends on what country you're in, because there is some CG clothes.
I love the chair scene because I'm like, oh, she's got a stomach too, like me. She's 5'2" and weighs 120. Which people are like, she needs to lose weight, and I'm like, no, she doesn't. Shut the fuck up.
That sex scene, by the way, is the most Christopher Nolan sex scene I think he could have possibly done. When they're in the courtroom and she's writhing on him, staring like with fucking full eye contact with like Emily Blunt. Like, I feel like that's the most Christopher Nolan way to do it, because it's very like it's both abstract. It's somehow like both tangible and abstract at the same time.
Let me ride that bony body. What?
There's so many cigarettes smoked, I wouldn't be surprised if the film was eventually proven to cause lung cancer.
Those herbal cigarettes are not any better.
It'll be the most cancer-causing movie since The Conquistador. which was filmed downwind from fucking Los Alamos.
There
Oh
you
no,
go.
sorry, from Nevada, from the Nevada test site.
Nevada.
My guy had a 5-pack a day habit, like
oh god,
like Oppenheimer's fucking smoking habit, and a pipe, and he would smoke the pipe in between chain smoking the cigarettes, and it's just like, dude, you are lung cancer.
Personified, yeah, absolutely. That's Nathan Hall, by the way.
Oh, hey.
Yeah, he hasn't been on since
Friend
that
of the
one
show.
time. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thought that would get a bigger reaction. I don't know, but anyway. Hope this doesn't Floppenheimer. Edit. It did not.
Yeah.
There's so many things that rhyme with Oppenheimer. Like, there's so many things you can throw in there. Like,
Oppenheimer.
Can I shout out this user's name, TaxBoss69? That's really good. It's a solid username.
I don't like the IRA. You know what? Fuck you, buddy. Tax boss 69. Nothing says 69 in, like, I guess paying your taxes.
Like being a tax boss.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What kind of taxes are you collecting?
He was such a good scientist, and what did they do to thank him? They made him go to a bad meeting where everyone yelled and screamed at him.
My poor
Right,
baby.
He was a good scientist, though.
I'm just imagining like a dog. The way it's
Bad, Oppenheimer. Bad. No, you do not go to communist houses.
Why did Nolan tease JFK like the Joker card from Batman Begins? When you said it, I was thinking about this one, by
I
the way.
saw that one too, and I just started laughing.
Yeah.
This looks like a job for John F. Kennedy. Oh man, I know. Where do I know that name from?
Played by who was it played? Gordon Levitt. Just Gordon Levitt.
I'd watch that.
He'd probably slay at that.
There's some crime happening.
The only way to make it funnier is if they had said something like, don't lose your head over this, but Kennedy's like on the fence or something.
All right. It's enough. Now I've become deaf, destroyer of ears.
That was an early. That was I think that one kicked off early. That was like that was like the big kind of 48,000 likes. Or
Yeah.
whatever.
Notice I didn't like that one. It doesn't need my help. It's fine.
I kind of just have a hatred for the 50,000 like reviews, mostly because I've never made one. So.
Right. You'll love them once you do them. Yeah.
Yeah. If I have one, but like the most I've gotten like 100 one time.
I got 4 once.
I only get Andy and Conan like bitching at me about fucking my letterbox thing. If they don't like it, they're like, "That's not true," and I'm like, "Oh, all right." This is the only Also, I wanted
how to respond to that.
I wanted to bring this up because it's kind of funny. Like, I knew that fucking Twitter has like a huge like random Indian guy presence, but Indian dads on Twitter and TikTok got so mad about the fact that the Bhagavad Gita was quoted during a sex scene. So there's like a whole subgenre of videos of
Indian dads reacting to
middle-aged Indian men that are like, Christopher Nolan, you must apologize to the Indian community for your use of the Bhagavad Gita in this sex scene. I don't think that's very appropriate.
There's also that Cillian Murphy is like anti-Japanese for some reason. I'm like, what?
I don't know.
Because he played Oppenheimer?
But I just thought it was very funny to have like a bunch of middle-aged men that were mad at Christopher Nolan in like fucking India. They're like, I demand an apology. It is like, no. Don't give Indian dads everywhere an apology.
Those are the Letterboxd one-liners for Oppenheimer. Please follow the show, J. Robert Flockenheimer. The Trinity Test button pusher is logging all the stuff we cover on this show, and also stuff that we don't. I am Conan Neutron. Power stays in the shadows, but I don't. I'm all over that biz. I'm almost done with my Criterion Collection challenge for 2023. Only got 8 left, people. 8 left, and it's freaking September. I'm nailing this shit.
If you complete it, you become Commerce Secretary.
I become the Criterion Channel if I complete it.
Yeah.
I'm
Commerce Secretary right now.
I'm following. Follow me along for all of the highbrow, like the midbrow, the populist fare. Like I said, like if you want all that stuff, I'm doing all of it. So that's what you can do to find me there. J. Andrew blowing up the world. His power's back on, and so is his letterbox access. One can imagine.
Our Commerce Secretary right now is fucking Gina Raimondo, the fucking ex-governor of Rhode Island that everybody fucking hated.
You never see their license plates.
I can't believe Rhode Island's a state.
Yeah. Rhode Island was the first to declare independence and the last to sign the Constitution. Like it is a little fucked up little state.
What do they have? Lovecraft? Nothing else, right?
Rhode Island is actually just a ship that crashed into Connecticut 500 years ago.
It's a state now.
They were just they were the last holdout to become a country because they're like we have some concerns, and it's like shut up, Rhode Island.
Are there concerns with the fact that their state's like the size of my table? Or
yeah, I have concerns that they have the same representation as California, which is like the 5th largest economy in the world. But he's watching all the weirdest stuff, so you don't have to, or maybe so you can. J. World, he's doing it all in Letterboxd. Follow him for that. Disappointed Cillian Murphy meme. Kristina is down there. She's back on the Letterboxd watching a bunch of Cillian Murphy movies I didn't know existed, frankly. I'm going to be real here.
Cillian, if you're watching this, or if you find this, let me be your agent, your publicist. I can get you better roles, please.
I feel like
the Oscar curse.
I feel like you should have been paid for the publicity you've done during this Barbenheimer
I know.
cycle. Moment for sure.
If I ever interviewed Margot Robbie or Cillian Murphy, I'd be like, yo, I was on top of the Barbenheimer stuff.
I will big up you 9 Ways Till Tuesday.
I was.
You could write us down as like recommendations.
Back in 2023, I was a big Barbenheimer girl.
Zach Marsh, this is a really tough view to do this. By the way, the audio listeners have no idea what I'm talking about, but I make the smaller boxes when it's a bigger panel, but I look like I'm walking like an Egyptian with Steve Martin. But anyway, wait, no, that was the Bengals. Never mind. Zach Marsh believes we did. He's also, I believe he is on Letterboxd. Indeed, yes, he is my Letterboxd friend, and is logging all the stuff all around. Honestly, one of the better follows that you can do on that site that I personally feel. And he's got a strong aesthetic, and he's doing it all. He's making the films, he's watching the films, he's appreciating the films, he's doing it all. What more do you want from him? Blood?
Listen, if it gets me like more followers and gets me fame, I'll shed it.
I'll do any.
No line is uncrossable.
See, that's it. Just follow him, please.
For a price, anything for the fame.
Anything for the fame.
This kid, he's gonna do anything for the fame.
Jay Underworld, take us away with the plugs. You arrived just in time. Thank you.
Yes, I came here. I could not be here.
Take us away with the Pluggenheimers.
Yes,
exactly.
You're watching us on YouTube. Please do all the YouTube things: like, comment, subscribe, hit that bell, and of course, watch the video to the end because that allows other movie fans to find our content, and you get to hear a great Conan Neutron song. So I think it's a fair trade. It's a fair trade, especially if you're
Suck it, Zimmer.
Especially if you're Conan.
If you're over on Twitch, you can do the Twitch things. Throw us a sub. If you happen to have an Amazon Prime account, you can give us a sub for free. Doesn't cost you a penny, but actually financially helps us so we can pay for things like hosting fees and other stuff.
Like buying you an internet, apparently, so you can be on the show.
Get that fiber.
Especially now that
I had no power. Fiber wouldn't have done anything.
Especially now that Conan's taking his break from doing streaming for the next little bit, and so the StreamYard bill ends up falling on my hands for the next for your touring
That's right.
Yeah, I peeped that. I got an email.
Look. Are we gonna keep this biz on air, or are we gonna talk about it like men?
Yes.
Because I'm sitting over here like this. I'm cool.
I'm sitting here like,
yeah, exactly. But we are on social media. You can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Blue Sky, of course, is the new one. And talk to us. We will answer back. We're interactable.
except for me.
Except for Kristina. Yeah, don't talk to Kristina.
Just don't.
No, you can like.
I'm sorry, was the pitch that we're interactable? That was the pitch.
That was, yes, I was sitting in the dark coming up with this.
Yeah, working on your Type 5. I see.
Yeah, no, it was not an effective use of my time by candlelight. But we do have a Patreon that'll also help us out. I won't have to sit in the dark candle. No, you can have access to things like our after parties. We had a great one the other night where we celebrated Forrest's birthday.
Oh yeah, that was good.
Yeah,
that was good.
So if
I do say so myself,
and you want to wish, you want to relive that birthday party that we.
I somehow didn't see you sending the links to people on the show Twitter too. Like somehow didn't catch that at all while we were streaming. So like was completely surprised by it. And then later I looked and I was like, if I had checked Twitter, I would have known this was going to happen. But I was distracted.
Yeah, but no, it was a genuine surprise, and it was a good time had by all. So please subscribe on Patreon so you can actually check that out and have a lot of fun with that and your weird stuff. I don't care. We talked about some weird shit. I just remember that.
Like this. Remember this?
and Cory Booker as the Kool-Aid man that Dan sent us.
That's right. Yeah.
It's a 2-hour stream that's the big payoff.
I was basically like this the whole time.
He was. Can't confirm. Can't confirm. Yes. Speaking of Conan, he has Protonic Reversal. He had a big show on Thursday.
Yes.
With Sleepy Time Gorilla music, right?
So close. You're so close. Sleepy Time Gorilla Museum is the name of the band. Yes.
Okay.
I was like, oh, he's got it. Nope. Yeah, and it goes. That goes to non-patrons tomorrow afternoon. So if you want to hear some Sleepy Time Gorilla music, yeah.
But yeah, if you want that right now, you can subscribe to your Patreon for just $1 and get access to that.
For just $1, you could get access to Protonic Reversal. You can see all the shows. That was on topic. It was just in a different point.
I know it's only burning me in my half. Sorry.
Yeah. but we do have. If you want to get, if you're not into Sleepy Time Gorilla Museum and you want some Conan Neutron music, you can actually go to Bandcamp, neutronfriends.bandcamp.com, get the new split EP with Lung, which is
an LP.
LP. You're right.
6 songs each. It's an LP.
Yeah, it's a long play. Got it.
Yep.
And it is fantastic. So go do that.
And if you don't do it, Conan's gonna.
Exactly. I look like that. As I try to pay our power bill.
This is Conan realizing how much the tour costs.
Not too far from the truth, frankly. Like, how long are we gonna be out? Oh my god, when do we get paid for? All right.
Speaking of tours, you got one coming up.
Exactly. Yes, I do. Correct.
Yes. So we'll be missing him.
That's how I'm feeling about it right now.
Spooky month, we'll miss him. Boo.
Yep. Here it is. That's what I was looking for. That's the yeah.
Scooby Dooby Doo.
We got a tour-long West Coast tour. Was it Phoenix, LA, San Francisco, Sacramento, Reno, Eugene, Portland, Bellingham, Seattle, Indiana, Rat City Recon. That's Rat City Recon right now. This is actually a scene from it.
It's exciting. But yeah, so if you can, if you're on the West Coast, please check out Conan next month.
If you're on the West Coast, go fuck yourself.
Well, thank you.
No, Conan will be coming soon.
Conan, I thought you were
just not in October.
Conan, I
Not
thought you
October,
were
yeah.
bi-coastal.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Perfect for
Do,
this
do you know?
month.
Did we do the bisexual lighting skeleton when you were on last time, Zach? Did we talk about this?
No, I don't think so. That doesn't sound familiar.
If you
to
look
me.
up bisexual lighting, that's the example Wikipedia gives. Is the
Oh,
the
yeah, I know
skeleton.
bisexual lighting. I did not know that the skeleton was the.
No, he shows up
It's the mascot.
quite often. on
It's
this
bisexual
show.
visibility month.
Yeah.
I took if you go on my Blue Sky, my profile picture is accidentally bisexual lighting,
Nice.
just by chance.
This guy's
because of
interested.
The way
He likes your vibe.
in the window.
Saw you from across the room.
Bi-skeleton visibility month.
Exactly. We got one other show in Louisville too. I forgot about that. That's
Louisville.
the Monarch Schnitzelberg walk. It's so difficult to say. I'm like, whatever. People will figure it out.
Schnitzelberg? Schnitzenheimer?
Exactly.
Well, that's not on the West Coast either. That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's probably it. We'll see. I don't know. There's some things that's probably not going to happen.
Well, we'll
Moving
see.
on.
Yes, Kristina, you have a Twitch channel.
Yeah.
Anything exciting happening on it?
Well,
Sleepy. By the way, can I just say Sleepy Time Gorilla Biscuits? That's basically a joke only for me, but I'm here for it. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna do the Twitch thing and hang out with my community. Barbie's supposed to be released on Max. I hate calling that.
That's it. That's this
on
weekend.
5th. On
Oh.
the 5th.
Oh.
So okay, Tuesday.
Yeah. So we might watch it during the weekend. We'll see.
Barbenheimer
There you go.
weekend.
So yeah,
Yeah.
sign up with Kristina's Patreon and get access to hanging out with her watching Barbie.
Yeah, you'll see my Barbie review and my Barbie cosplay too. So yeah.
How many times have you seen it?
Barbie?
Yeah.
Like 8 times.
That's some
Yeah,
Zach
been out
Marsh
behind
everything
4
everywhere
times.
all at once numbers. That's,
Yeah, you still got to pump those up. I saw.
Yeah.
Those are
Let
rookie.
me put it this way. I've
Actually, no, I think I've seen it 10 times considering someone gave me something.
So I've seen everything everywhere all at once 40 times, and only five of them have been at home.
No, I don't have that kind of money.
I don't either, but that's why I
He
don't
knows
have
a
that kind
movie
of
theater
money.
you could break into.
Come on, man. Has anybody got any of those movie tickets, man?
Yeah.
But yeah, just because
yeah,
I haven't said
indeed.
it yet. But yeah, it's patreon.com/cosmopolitics. I cannot
Mhm.
speak. But yeah, that's how you can support Kristina.
You had like 2 hours to prepare, but
I'm
yeah.
sitting in the dark. No internet access. Like literally, the only candles we had were like the citronella candles to keep away the mosquitoes. So now the living room.
Well,
is
it's just
like-
no
Now
mosquitoes
it smells
around.
like that. Oof.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was terrible.
Not a great smell. We had 2 of them going just so we could have some light, because that's the only candles we had. Well,
And
we did have
luckily
some
no
other candles,
mosquitoes.
but I'm very allergic to them, so we're not using those.
All right.
Come
on.
Yeah, but Zach over here has a great movie y'all should check out, which I don't have written down because I was going to look it up right before we started and didn't have internet
It's
access.
a talk in the park. I'm just gonna rescue you on that.
Talk in the park.
Thank you.
It's not publicly available. It will be at some point, but I mean, if there are like film-minded people who want to see it, I mean, for example,
On this show,
Christina, if you want to watch it, I'd be happy to send it your way.
Yay.
That's good.
But
I've seen it.
that being said, it will be at some point. I am also, if anyone's following me on Instagram probably saw this, I just had a lightning bolt of inspiration make me treatment out an entire feature film. I'm working on the actual screenplay right now. It's called While We're on the Way to There, which is a line from the song He Ain't Heavy as My Brother.
Oh yeah.
Which is a movie about a brother and an older brother and his younger half sister, and it's got interesting inspirations that range from Past Lives to Manchester by the Sea to You Can Count on Me to fucking Round Midnight. I think it's a really interesting film. I'm really looking forward to seeing how the script turns out, and I intend for it to be my next thing, and I intend to make it as soon as possible.
I like how you say it, like you're not the one writing the script too. You're like, I'm excited to see how the script turns out. You know?
Why? But I don't know. You don't know, right? Like,
Yeah. It's a writing thing. Like it's an adventure.
Yeah, no, I know, but it's I'm just like
that first draft's a wild ride, man.
I'm gonna leave my my brain for a while. Tell me how the script turns out.
Yeah.
Well, if you need someone to do some scoring work for you, I know a guy.
That might be a thing.
It's Hans Zimmer. No kidding.
Obviously, yes. I can afford. Look,
I'm way more affordable than Hans Zimmer. I guarantee.
As I teased earlier, the movie will have a needle drop that is part of it's the story depends on it. That will, I imagine, will be about 95% of the movie's budget is getting the rights for the song in question. So
it's not easy. There's entire divisions of people devoted to that in larger productions. So
yeah.
It
is not a song on To Pimp a Butterfly. I can say that.
These are the plugs. Yes, these are indeed the
Go on
plugs.
for 30 minutes.
Yes.
Well, Zach, you got some final thoughts to throw out there
about Oppenheimer? Oh my God!
Remember that movie?
Yeah, I think that's the movie we're talking about.
Yeah, no, it's funny. Like I've seen it 4 times. It was immediately an all-time top 10 movie for me. If I want to be specific, it's my 6th favorite movie of all time because 2 Godfather movies are one movie to me. So people would say it's 7th, but it's not 6th.
Don't ever say that shit on my show again. The first 2 Godfather movies are basically the same movie.
They're one movie. They're 2 halves of one movie.
It's like Superman 1 and 2.
Even Coppola said that when he won Best Director the second time. So
yeah, but he didn't like the Godfather movies. He was just doing them for the money.
I don't think that's true.
He literally was. He was like, I was trying to save up to do my own stuff. He was trying to save up to do the Conversation or whatever. He was trying to save up to do his own projects, and he just was adapting them for like fun and profit.
But anyway, Oppenheimer is a cinematic landmark. You know, I don't think there's any elements of it that I wouldn't apply one of the best X of all time to. The cast, the performances. Cillian Murphy should fucking walk away with the Oscar for Best Actor. Yeah.
He literally has won awards where he's just sitting like at home and thanking people nervously. Like, I know this.
I get it.
I wish I had the picture of him sitting cross-legged, naked.
Oscar accepting an award. Yeah.
I think that Nolan has taken the story itself is not novel, but the way that the story is executed to me is like fucking form changing. And I don't think people even I don't even know if I've come to terms with how much of a culture shock this film is. And I think the next 10, 20 years of blockbuster filmmaking, of biopics, I think are going to owe a heavy debt to Oppenheimer. And there will definitely be movies where it's like, oh, that's just a shitty version of Oppenheimer. But I also think there are going to be some really brilliant things that come to fruition as a result of this movie's influence. And I think that there are already people saying, oh, it's one of the best movies of the 21st century, etc. They're right, but I think that the acclaim is going to grow even more substantially over the next.
You already see.
I was going to ask if you were those people that were saying that.
I am one of them, but I've seen I think was it Peter Travers said it was as well. Like there have been reviews and stuff. Like there are things that have come out. But I think that its stature is only a portion of what it's going to become over the next years and decades.
I feel like you already see like the promo they've been doing for Bernstein or whatever, like copying the Oppenheimer promo.
Oh fuck yeah. Like I think that trailer would not have come out in the way that it did if this movie didn't exist.
Yeah. So I think that they're gonna see way more There's gonna just find random scientists. They're gonna make Edward Teller the movie. Like,
Yeah.
nah,
Look, if they make a Feynman movie, that would be awesome.
Yeah,
but like
it'll be you that's really excited and his family and.
Feynman was hilarious. Thing about Feynman is Feynman made physics interesting for people that have no interest whatsoever in hearing about science. That's what like his like claim to fame is, and he's deeply entertaining. So it actually would lend itself better than that meme even. Yes.
All right. But Kristina, you got final thoughts?
Yeah. This is Christopher Nolan's magnum opus, as Cillian Murphy has said. Like, this is literally like, I don't think
Almost
he's
like a
ever
magnum opie.
Yep. Can I do my fucking review? Anyway, I gotta get home by like 11. Back to the cat sitting. But phenomenal cast, phenomenal editing. I know people are like, but the too much talking, and I'm like, what the fuck is a movie about? Like, what is in a movie? Like, I'm just saying. But yeah, I think Cillian Murphy's probably gonna get the Oscar if he shows up or not. He's probably like, yeah, whatever. Nervous. Incredible ensemble cast. The detail to try to get as much accurate as possible. Like, you could not do it any better than this film. And I've seen this film 4 times, and I always notice something different every time I see it. So for people who are doubting, go see this movie.
You're a real Killianologist.
Yes.
Chief Resident Killianologist.
Actually, Andy, let's hear these final thoughts, because
yeah,
I know that they're going to be based on the fact that you watched it on on FFS Films.
I gotta say, like, I was not excited about this movie, because like everybody was hyping it up. Well, hear me out. I mean, like one of the things is like Nolan has his problems, and he overcomes them. Like as I mentioned on Facebook on our conversation, like he doesn't really write good parts for women, but he allows the actresses he brings into the film to have enough space to give great performances.
This is a man's world.
Yeah, I mean, he has a very male's gaze. I mean, that's just his, his oh god, the feet. Yeah, and then, but that being said, again, he does give the women in this film. There's actually 2 women, which is surprising me. None of them have daddy issues, which also surprised me. Because that's like almost every single woman he has in his film has like daddy issues, or like a vixen trying to screw the man, and neither of them are really like that. They I'm not going to say that they had that much depth to them, but their performance was great because he gave them enough space to allow to in the script to make you think that there's more depth than probably on the written page. But that's okay, because that's what a good screenwriter can do, is let the actors do what they do best. And a good director does that too. And because, like I said, the movie also...
Christopher Nolan is both.
Yes. And this movie starts off, like you're just thrown in the middle of it. There's no like breathing space, and you're just, it just go. And you're on this wild ride. And like you're like 2 hours in before you're just like finally kind of like up on everything that's going on and like really get the rhythm of it. And the first time watching it. So I did thoroughly enjoy it.
Well, the problem is that they have all these casino things, and they distract you from the actual movie. So it takes you a while to really get into the meat of it, right? That's the... Yeah,
well, I wasn't going to bring that up, but anyways, it really, like I said, it was nuts. I had low expectations for this film, but it exceeded them because, Nolan is actually a very talented filmmaker.
All right, Conan.
Yeah, look, this is actual representation for physics enthusiasts, and certainly the most Chris Nolan of Chris Nolan films. And if you don't like that dude's things, don't see it. I think that it's so often you see physics depicted as scientists and lab coats doing a science, with math on a whiteboard or a blackboard. And some of the most interesting parts of physics have very little to do with math, and that's something the movie gets across well. Again, to quote Richard Feynman, portrayed by Jack Quaid, physics is to math what sex is to dry humping. And that's this is one of the only movies that shows that, and I really love that. There is nuance here. Dudes do rock, which is even more apparent after having seen Gerwig's surprisingly transgressive Barbie, for sure, and that kind of speaks to what Andy was saying. I never expect to see actual quantum mechanics broken down the way that they were here, and for anyone who know or care the difference between fission and fusion, for instance. And you don't have to have any interest in the periodic table of the elements to enjoy this, and it does a great job of showing why it's important and why there's an entire discipline of science that has nothing to do with the lab. And I think so much of our culture is focused on that if you didn't make it with your hands, it doesn't exist in real life and it doesn't work, which is like a weird throwback to like older ideas about labor. It not only isn't true, it really, for the most part, isn't worth arguing, but engineering and theory are absolutely not just work, but worthwhile. And the biggest problem is it's very hard to depict. This is one of the only films I can think of at its level that does that. And I think it's very well acted. I think Cillian pretty much has best actor in the bag at this point.
Yeah.
And
I will be campaign. He's not going to want a campaign, but I'm for it. I'll do it.
Everyone else will do it for him. Robert Downey Jr.'s arc as Louis Strauss is not just awesome, but depicts a great resting insecurity of the autodidact and self-made man in a world of lifetime career professionals that I don't think I've ever seen anywhere else. And he's consistently plagued by imposter complex and a certain degree of paranoia about being accepted. And he collects slights like baseball cards. And it's completely tragic. And I love it, and it's a great role for him. And the fact that the whole back third is dominated by that is astounding. But this movie is great. I saw it twice. I got more out of it the second time. I'll probably see it a third time. Super glad that we covered it. Super glad that it exists. Could not be more pleased it was wrapped up inexorably for all of time with the Barbie movie. I love that we covered both of them.
Yeah, well, and I think that this is it's very in the zeitgeist. I think that this also touches on like the military political system and physics and the way that they're intertwined for all time, which it kind of on some level happened here, right? Like because this is like pre-space program even, and like satellites and like our kind of military industrial complexization of all of these places like Caltech and Berkeley. Like this is where kind of that whole seed sprouted up. So I kind of find like the scientific plus political aspects of it, because those are very different worlds and people have very different opinions within those worlds, to be deeply fascinating about this movie without kind of droning on and be like, this is what this movie is about. Like it doesn't slow walk you through that. And especially if you read the American Prometheus, which I think everyone that sees this should. Like that's why I've been plugging it so much, because there's so much of that of this movie.
Oh, really? Haven't noticed.
No, like scene by scene, there's so much that
this is news to me.
You like that book, huh? All right.
Well, no, but there's so much that he took directly from the book. So I would encourage everybody to read the book, because there's entire scenes that are just wrapped up in one line of dialogue that when you read the book, you're like, oh, this is important for all of these reasons. And, yeah. And I am now...
In summation, it fucks. Thank you.
Yeah. I was going to say, I am now become death, destroyer of streams.